Hello, welcome back to H Hour, and thank you for joining me once again. Unless this is the first time you listen to H Hour and you're here because Monique brought you here because you want to hear her talk on yet another. You've been on podcast before, right?
Yeah, I have. I
There you
have been
go.
on a
Yet
podcast
another.
before.
Yet another. Obviously, this is going to be the best one. If you are new to H Hour, be aware that there is an icebreaker episode before this, which is about 20 minutes long, where I asked Monique a bunch of questions which were submitted by patrons ahead of the podcast. I would strongly recommend going back and listen to that first as a lead into this, or you can listen to it second if you want, or you can not listen to it at all and just listen to this one. No problemo. Just be aware it is there if you want it. Anyway, on to H hour number 282, I
My
think.
goodness.
Welcome to H hour, Monique, and thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, I'm very, very happy to have you here. So I know there's loads you're involved with. Obviously, we were introduced via Lee Matthews, Total Combat. And then in my research online, I thought, holy moly, there's much more to this lady than just the fighting. So, and we're going to get into all of that. But the icebreaker started like I was writing notes straight with the icebreaker. I said, I'm going to talk about that, going to talk about that, going to talk about that. Can we discuss, if it's all right with you, can we start off with discussing in inverted commas, manosphere?
Yeah.
Manosphere. There was a question on the icebreaker about Andrew Tate, just for people listening, and you said something along the lines of I think you were referring to like the prominence and the popularity, relative popularity that people like Andrew Tate are
hmm
getting is symptomatic of something else going on.
Yeah.
What is that?
I think I have a view of the world that is very connected. And, you know, because of who I am and the work I do, I kind of feel like I get to see both sides of the political spectrum and like the best and the worst of how they're expressed. Um, and I think a lot of the conversation around men in the last, decade or so has been very kind of critical, very critical of masculine traits. Um, I think we might even talk about it a bit later, but even when we talk about things like war and things that have been typically the masculine domain, they're spoken about in a way that isn't positive. So I think a lot of young men who feel who are misguided and maybe don't necessarily have the support that they need at home are obviously going to be looking for role models of what they see as masculinity. And when you're young and impressionable, things like money, things like women, um, this bravado, this egotism is how they see being masculine. They don't see things like being a protector, providing for your family, because those are things now that aren't, many people say, well, those aren't typically masculine traits. But then what that is doing is disallowing men from actually being like that and seeking masculine role models elsewhere.
Yeah, I think it's a fair summary. I mean, I think people like Andrew Tate. And who's that other guy who's just been on with Piers Morgan? Who's that guy? Oh, I
Couple of
don't
them,
know his
isn't
name.
there? I don't.
I don't know his name, but another like he seemed to me. I've not come across him before, but he
Yeah.
seems to me like another trying to Andrew Tate wannabe.
Yeah.
I think that the relative influence of those kinds of people is pretty small. But the people they do influence are highly impressionable.
Yeah.
I think the guys that have got anything about them. I mean, just your average guy who has some morals and principles, who's got his head screwed on in some way, shape, or form,
I mean, look,
is
like,
going to be not influenced by them that much.
yeah. I actually think that their influence is quite wide. Like, I'm not saying it's
You
not.
think what's quite right?
I think their influence is wider than we probably realize. Because this is the thing about the internet as well. Like, it allows people to be anonymous.
Yeah.
Um, so I can imagine that what people say, to their friends during the day is very different to how, when they go home and they're chronically online, and the kinds of there's two yous, isn't there? There's a private life and then your public life. So yeah, I do think a lot of men probably harbor these views of women, but I don't think it's about just being like, that's men are bad. This is what all men are like. This is a we need, if you want to solve it, we have to actually understand why it's happening. I do think it's an issue. I do think it's a problem, but I think the root cause of it is something that is a little bit more yeah, isn't necessarily so clear cut. And there's
Okay.
a lot of very nice men in the world, a lot of good men.
Mo-
So
most.
most, yeah, I would say most.
Most,
I'd
you
say
know,
most are decent. Yeah.
the yeah, I think, if I was to say, okay, why are people like Andrew Tate become popular, and so there's probably two sides to that. One, it's in the media's interest to give people like that
A
time
platform, yeah.
because it makes money.
Yeah.
But secondly, also, you touched on it, is that, that there are a lot of men, I think, who feel disenfranchised, they feel attacked, they
Yeah.
feel undervalued.
Yeah.
Uh, and that is down to that is partly down to, this
Women.
it is down to a a certain type of women, or certain section of women, or there's women who there who will, and there's men actually who tag along on this, who say that masculine traits,
A
masculinity
negative, yeah.
is bad and a problem. And
Yeah.
you touched on it earlier, which is, you mentioned providing and protecting,
Hmm.
you know, and that is, to me, you hit
Those
the
are the
nail on the head.
fundamental male traits.
The male traits, right? But
Yeah.
there's also, you can look at, so it's also the reason men are the way they are,
Hmm.
and I mean from an
Yeah,
evolutionary
evolutionary.
biological
Yeah.
perspective, is primarily uh, to be able to protect,
Yeah.
you know, and the way, and the reason that there's differences in the way we treat women, and women treat
Yeah.
men, and which things like holding the door open for a lady, things that I would describe as, what's it called it now, chivalry. I
Yeah.
call it, that's
Chivalry's
basics.
dead and
That
we
is
killed it.
basics. It's basics.
Chivalry's dead.
Hold the door open for the lady. Let the lady go first. Hold the door open for
I
the
mean,
lady.
to be honest, I expect to be treated like that by men, and I think men like it though. I think a lot of men do like it.
But there are people who want to paint that as, oh,
Yeah.
that's because women can't help themselves. But if you flip it round, it is, I think that the main reason for these
Hmm.
behaviors, which are rooted in our ancestry,
Hmm.
they're not just these new things we
Yeah.
decided to do, is because it is protection of the
100%.
female species,
Yeah.
because they are vital,
We're precious, yeah.
more important than men. Men treat women better than men treat
Women
men.
and children first, because women, if it wasn't for us, it's like
Yeah.
it's that thing of like, if all the women but one die in a tribe, that's the tribe is fucked. But if most of the men die, you have like one or two men, and you have, all the women, the tribe is going to continue.
Yeah.
So it is, but I think this is the problem. This is something I've been thinking about a lot. Feminism is a whole other topic, I guess, but the second wave feminists in the 70s and 80s had this real um, philosophy of men and women are the same. We're exactly the same. There's no differences between us. And that is a fundamental reason why now we're having all of these issues, why we're having all these conversations that range from like, you know, gender to, and violence, and all these kind of, like, men and women are different. We are so different, completely and utterly, like not just in terms of our physiology, but in terms of how we think about things, how we perceive the world, like our hormones, all of these things are so different. So why, we've had like 50 years now of being told that men and women are the same. How that's obviously going to have, a serious impact on how we socialize.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I think we had 50 years of treat men and women the same, but maybe in the last 20, that
Mm,
has change changed into men and women are the same. So wanting to treat men and women equally, yeah, absolutely. As in equal opportunity, right? But saying we're both the same is the problem. Is the
Well,
problem.
it's in academia. Academia
Okay.
has taught people that the only difference is, but women can be just as strong as men. Women can be, think the same as men. We're capable of the same. But it's actually not about capabilities. It's like it's about having different capabilities, different capacities, different interests, different, um, different. Yeah, we have a biological clock, and those are things that you have to think about. No one, we women of our generation were not raised to thinking about the idea that there's going to be a time when you have to think about having children if you want them or not. We live with that pressure, whereas men don't have that. And that's just a fact of life. It's unfair, but life is unfair. We have to think about those things. And I think women as well have been disempowered to in terms of that question, because it's a big one and it impacts everybody. Do you know what I mean? It impacts society.
I don't see it as unfair though, right? I just see it
It's life.
as what it is.
Yeah,
In
it's
the
life.
same way that like men don't have the opportunity to do what women can do.
Yeah.
I- in that
Yeah.
regard. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
yeah, absolutely.
I mean, for a woman, it's crap
Yeah.
if you are not if you think I don't want kids, I want to have a long, very healthy career and reach the pinnacle of
Yeah.
like kind of my professional situation. Well, it's a bit harder for women than it is
Yeah.
men because that's kind of frowned upon because women need to reproduce.
And there's
It's kind of
sacrifices.
vital for
Yeah.
the human race.
Yeah. Yeah.
you know
Yeah,
so I get it.
exactly.
Yeah, I get it. I bet it's again I think a lot of things are just reality. Men and women are different, you
Yeah.
know
And there
and the
was even
reasons for those are misrepresented.
100%.
Masculinity is terrible. It shouldn't exist. Men shouldn't be like that. And then you go, okay, well, kind of need men to be like that
100%.
when times get hard.
100%.
You know,
And there's a real, like, my mum sent me a video the other day of like models in the 90s and models now, like male models. And in the 90s, they're like ripped and strong and then now it's like, soy boys. And
they
this
were there,
is
not now.
like,
Yeah.
and but it's so interesting because it's the kind of man that we find attractive. I think like a generation finds attractive is very much represents how we see masculinity in general. It's the same, and same with women as well.
What? Explain that. What you mean?
Like the kind of men who society treasures now are very soft, they're very
Do you think
sensitive.
they're treasured, though, Monique? Do you think they're
I think
treasured?
they're treasured by the media. That's what I mean. I think they're treasured by the you know what what they want us to see, kind of thing.
But do you think, though, that more women these days, are looking for those kind of less masculine traits in a partner to mate with, as opposed to old school man, as we refer to him, that hypothetical beast?
I don't think women know what we want. I think that's I think that's the problem. I don't think men know what they want either. I think that has, and I actually do think that is a tale as old as time. I've it's about how we compartmentalize uh, our sexualities. So I think with men, I think this is where you get like the whole, I'd fuck her and she's a wifey kind of thing. I think men really have that kind of, okay, this is what she is, this is what she is. This is my experience as well. This is how,
What were you talking about? Two separate women there?
yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah,
A
yeah.
mistress and a
And
wife.
yeah,
Okay.
there's the mistress and then there's the wife. I think a lot of men compartmentalize in that way. I think women want
I don't
providers.
know anyone who does that. I'm older than you, though. And my friends are older than
Interesting.
yours. I don't know any men who do that.
Do you also do you share things like that with each
I
other?
take that back. I take that back. I know one.
I know several, definitely. I know
Okay.
several, and this is my line of work, so I definitely I know what men get up to. And the thing is, as well, I have clients who are like, none of my mates know what I'm doing. So
Right. That's a little.
this is.
But you
mm,
talking about? Sorry to
let me
interrupt.
finish my original
Yeah,
point,
go for
and
it.
then
Go
we
for
can
it.
go
Yeah.
back there.
Sorry.
So I think men tend to compartmentalize. I think women and women do love the chase in reverse. We want a man who's unavailable. That's classic. I don't know what the fuck that is, but it's like, he doesn't want me. He treats me like shit. Therefore, I want him. There has to be a biological component to that because I don't understand what that is. Men compartmentalize. Women want what is not available because it's something to do with social status.
Is that common?
100%.
Is
Of
it?
course, I see it in myself. If I'm genuinely honest, I've been that girl. Like,
Really?
I don't know what it is. I don't know. I have no
I
idea what it
know
is.
the what I know the women want a like there's women who want a baddie. They want a bad
A
guy.
lot of a lot
They go,
of women.
really? That's a problem.
Yeah. Well, think about how many, like, women are like, he's out there doing what he's doing, and I'm at home with the kids, and it's like, leave him, sis. Look, I know so many women like that, close, very close women to me. But there has to be a reason. I just don't get it.
Yeah, it's odd to me. I understand it exists, but it's odd to me.
I think we just have to accept, that this is what humans are like. We really have managed to complicate things for ourselves,
Yeah, but
especially
I think
in
that's the minority of
relationships.
people though. I think what you're talking about is a minority of women and a minority of men.
So interesting that you think that.
I think the majority of women,
Mm.
no, I can't speak for women because
Hmm.
I've never been one.
Hmm.
I think the majority of women know what they want in a partner. They
Uh-huh.
know it. It's in their bones. In the
Hmm.
same way, like competition and camaraderie and violence is in the bones of like most men just to be able to do it. So I think what most women want in a mate, in a long-term partner, is they want someone who's generous. They want someone who is reliable. They want someone who's trustworthy. They want someone who's physically capable. They want someone who's mentally capable. Ideally, they want someone that's a bit higher up in the social status. They want someone that's intelligent.
You've not
They
said,
want someone who can provide. They want someone
yeah.
who's got resources. What haven't I said?
You've not said, yeah, like, because this, I don't like to romanticize what men or women are like. And I know that, like, a lot of women, that those are the things they'll say. But then why are so many women left unprovided for? Why are so many children left unprovided for? Why are there so many absent fathers? What is that?
That's because these days we are not great at choosing mates and we have not got our values and priorities
But
right.
this is the problem. This is, so, from, like, historically speaking, and women have a freedom now that we've never had before.
Okay, yeah.
Women, yes, divorce rates are higher, but that's also because back in the day, women couldn't fucking leave. You have to, like, you're locked in now, babes.
Yep.
That's it. This is your life.
Yep.
Men can, go and have his dalliances here, there, and everywhere, which men did, right?
Come on, have
Dalliances.
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 Explain that word. Dalliances.
Dalliance, yeah, like a little shag here and there.
Dalliances. Okay,
Dalliance.
right. Dalliances. Yeah. Yeah.
I do like that. I use it quite a lot. Little dalliance.
I like it. Yeah.
And now we don't have to, that's not something that we necessarily have to put up with anymore.
But
Yes.
women can do the same thing.
Yes,
This is
women
part-
can do the same thing now.
Yeah.
But there's so many things that, like contraception, availability of contraception, the fact that you've got, 3 kids in the house now, you've got to look after them. When do you have time? Men were typically working outside of the home, so there's more kind of room to do those things, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
about family structures. It's about, again, biology. So yeah, I think there's quite a few factors as to why relationships look so different now. But also, yeah, I do think sometimes men and women aren't super honest about, yes, on those are the things we know we should want, but how many of us end up with the wrong partner?
Yeah. I think part of the problem, right, is that as great as the internet is and the age of information and whatever else you want to call the last 20 years, is that the fact that meeting people is so much easier to do now. Meeting an abundance of people is so much easier to do now. A meeting in inverted commas, I mean online dating, yeah. And getting sex is so easy these days. If you want, you can just get it, right? I'm not talking about
Yeah.
paid sex. I'm
Yeah.
talking about meeting someone, going, your Tinder date or whatever it is, and going, screwing,
Well,
coming
this
back.
is another thing.
Problem. But because
Yeah.
of that, I think it has watered down how much attention people pay to what they're choosing in a partner,
Yeah.
because they don't have to
Yeah.
think about Who am I? What do I want? Who am I
Consequences.
choosing? Why didn't that last
Yeah.
relationship work? Because within minutes of the last relationship finishing, they're on a journey for a new one. They're on the next date. They can just go in, out, in, out,
Yeah.
in, out.
I think with women as well, another thing in our defense is that we know what good sex is like now as well. And we didn't used to. You know, there was like the orgasm gap. It was a yeah,
The orgasm gap.
the orgasm
Never
gap.
heard of this.
Yeah, so I can't remember the actual. Have you got the internet there?
Have I got the
Yeah, you
internet?
got the
I
internet.
got the Tinder web.
Have a little look. Yeah, type in the orgasm gap. It's basically women having less orgasms than men. And also, we're much better at hiding it. And if every woman can fake an orgasm, most men think, you know, wouldn't know. And I think because women have higher standards now, because we know what we want, we are also less impressed now with, you know, intimacy, like certain kinds of intimacy. So I think that I honestly, you know, this is my industry. I think it's way more important in terms of this like larger questions around what is a man, what a man should be like, what a woman should be like, what does social cohesion look like. I think sex is really at the bottom of a lot of these conversations, and because it's such a taboo, people don't really want to talk about it.
Really?
Yeah, I do.
What at the root of the conversation I'm going to talking about,
Yeah,
like
like
finding a decent partner.
yes, I think it's really important because you're going to be with this person for the rest of your life. If you're going to be in a monogamous relationship, it's of course it's something that you have to be. You know, there needs to be
Oh,
a compatibility there.
I totally agree, right? I totally agree, and it is a question that I have said to myself, where in terms of with partners,
Yeah.
and I think when you can say, "Oh, do you want to spend the rest of the time?" If you'd ask someone, "Do you want to spend the rest of
Hmm.
your life with this person?" They go, "Yeah." Ask the same person and say, "This is the only person you're ever going to have sex with again.
Yeah.
Are you okay with that?"
Yeah. Exactly.
And they would think about it a totally different way.
Hmm.
Because that I swear down, most
100%.
people would go, hmm,
And going back to what you were saying about men
I
being,
don't
you
know
know,
about that.
most women would say they want someone who's intelligent, who's kind, and he's a provider and blah, blah, blah. But like, she also wants to have good sex. So if all of those things are happening, but the sex is bad, and in this day and age where women, you know, don't have to accept bad sex, a lot of women, and I think that's what happens with the whole bad boy thing as well. It's like, but I'm having a better time in bed with this guy. And that, you know, is an easy way to confuse somebody who is looking for love and
Yeah,
stability, you know.
it'll
But
be the same for men as well.
yeah, I think, yeah,
You know,
which is, yeah, 100%, which is what I'm
yeah.
saying about the compartmentalizing of the mistress and the wife, you know.
I don't think that's common.
You don't think
Do
so?
you think? So, do you think most men are like that?
I think a lot of men are like that.
But what are we talking about percentage wise? I think it's really small.
Ooh,
Well, of my age and up, the younger generation I can't answer for. You know, I I definitely know at least one philanderer.
trying to think percentage wise. I mean, also look, you've got. I think. I mean, and I think this is also why a lot of men will see sex workers as well, because it's easier to kind of draw a distinction between what's happening. Like you can just be like, well, I paid for that, so
Do
it's
you think that's okay? So, do you think a man who's
yeah,
got a wife or a girlfriend,
hmm
um, who is seeking satisfaction from a sex worker,
yeah.
do you think that is morally acceptable?
I think I'm not going to be a hypocrite because you know I'm session married guys. I think it's a difficult one. I actually do think it's a difficult one. I want to say yes. I think it's acceptable. Like I had a friend of mine once said, you know, men don't pay sex workers to stay; they pay to leave. I think when you consider the realities of the human sexuality, there has to be a give or take somewhere, and I think a lot of women will be upset with that, maybe that approach. And I don't want to draw a line in the sand with it because it's something that I'm open to discussion with. Um, but I do think that there is always going to be a I think humans are always going to feel urges. And I think there are nice ways of kind of compartmentalizing the urge and then having a good life, if that makes sense. I think it's the same thing with porn as well. I think this has been one of the big like discussions around like because also people have different, it's like some people aren't happy with if their partner watches porn, which for me, I'm like, but it's in my head, that's completely fine, like ultimately we are very we're we're sexual beings with many different sexual urges and so I think especially with porn it's fantasy ultimately, so we should be able to live that out personally, and enjoy that kind of mental reverie, I think.
Yeah, yeah. The only, I think the only, I don't know, I was going to say, I think the only danger with porn is that its accessibility. It's so accessible for young people, young impressionable people, and if they haven't got the right role models or influences in their life, then they can get a pretty skewed idea of what a healthy sexual relationship looks like
Yeah.
because of porn, I think. And then the porn addiction's a whole other thing. Um,
What does a porn addiction what would you call a porn addiction? How often would you have to be watching it for it to be an addiction? Like I
uh,
watch a lot of porn. I wouldn't say I have an addiction, but I watch quite a bit.
a porn addiction, I say, is you have the
The
only
way
way you
you can
can
get
really
off.
get
Yeah.
satisfied is by
Hmm.
watching porn,
Yeah.
you know. And then if you have got a partner or you're having sex with partners,
Mm.
you actually in your head you're thinking about the porn,
Yeah.
which I'm sure is the case,
Yeah.
you know. Yeah,
Yeah, I hear that. I think that would probably be an addiction. Um, I think porn has been, I think there's good porn and bad porn. And I think the good porn has been massively demonized. And in the same way as, the conversation about are you being being sexually exploited and being sex trafficked is not the same as being a sex worker. I think in the same way we can have the same discussion with porn where there's a lot of good porn, a lot of, you can get a lot of amateur porn these days. It's self-produced. No one's being exploited. It's just a couple up to like, production companies where, everything's very consenting. Everyone signed all the forms, which you have to do these days. Like there's a lot of form signing and things being cleared, etc., etc. Um,
I don't understand though. I don't understand how that industry is still making money. Like,
what do you mean?
because
But this is it, isn't it?
there's so much of it. There's so much of
It's
it, right?
crazy, isn't it?
Like,
But
what I mean is a film getting funded to be
yeah,
made in a studio. You go, really? I don't.
but everyone watches porn. This is the thing, and this is why I think the conversation around sex is so interesting. It's even like even going back to this thing of like, oh, is it acceptable for a man to who's in a relationship to see a sex worker? There's it's if we were really honest with ourselves about the like the complication, like the complexities and the breadth and depth of human desire, I think it would really take the edge off a lot of these questions and kind of allow us to get to the bottom of them a little bit. But we're so in denial. Like everybody watches porn, of course. Like everybody.
Probably
It's
most. I think
most. And if you
probably
go
most.
onto like Pornhub, for example, and you look at an average video compared to a video on YouTube, and how many more views it has, and how many more likes, and how much more engagement of like it's a booming industry, and that's after they've lost. I think their viewership is down by like 25% or something after the online safety bill that they've passed recently. So you have to like do all the verification and stuff now. So like viewership is,
The
but even then,
the
like
trackable viewership. You just use
yeah,
a VPN and get around it.
yeah, exactly.
Everyone should be using the VPN anyway, regardless
Exactly.
of
And
having
that's
access to
probably why the
porn.
viewership is good, because they're only looking at people who just like So
Yeah. 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 Exactly. Can I ask, how did you end up in the industry?
so I was a stripper. I'm not going to go into dates because
Oh, no, no, no. And if you're not comfortable
no,
talking about it, you
no,
don't
no, no,
have
no.
to.
I'm totally comfortable talking. I used to be a stripper, and then a guy approached me and was like, "You look really strong," and I said, "No one's ever complimented me for that before in the strip club." Because again, this is what I'm saying. You have conversations with men in the strip club, and a lot of these
You were
men.
working there.
I was working there. Yeah, I
Oh,
was a
okay. Yeah.
dancer.
Yeah.
And then, but I looked completely different to everyone. Like very muscular, had a little afro, not the type, you know. So met this guy and then I started fetish wrestling. So that's when I started doing more kind of like BDSM, fetish based work and
You
yeah,
were organizing.
organizing.
You were organizing the events, or you were taking part in the event?
So guys basically will reach out and say, I want a session, I want you to beat me up, or I want you to tie me up, or I want to have a competitive session with you, or whatever it is.
Yeah. Well,
It's very niche.
that's how it started.
That's how it's yeah, it's this
Mm.
guy and we wrestled essentially and I was like, what the fuck? This is fine. Like I've really been
Mm.
doing jujitsu for years at this
Hello.
point. So I was like, I can just roll with guys and get paid for it. Amazing. Like this is very much fitting into my life.
Yeah, it's like drilling.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah.
exactly. I was getting yeah, because like sometimes I wouldn't be turning up to my jujitsu like BJJ. And my teacher would be like, "Oh, you haven't been practicing," and I'd be like, "Yes, I have. Yes, I have actually."
Right, I've got a question. I got a question on this.
Yeah.
Now, who was I talking to about this yesterday? I was talking to someone yesterday, the day before, and I mentioned that you were coming on, and they were because they asked me about who the next guest is, and blah 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 blah. And in that conversation, I I said, so there's this myth that lots of like exec level males,
Mm. Mhm.
company owners, and I mean companies that actually just more than them,
Yeah.
CEO types, MD types, they
Politicians.
they have a thing about needing to be dominated
Yeah.
sexually like violently some other way,
Mhm.
right? And I think that's not the case. I think that is just a myth that is nonsense. I think
Mhm.
most of them are like, yeah, no, they're like strong male types, and that is it. There's no giving way.
I think you're
What do
just
you think? What's your experience?
you also think men don't compartmentalize. Like
What's your experience with it?
yeah, I think a lot of them are, for sure.
Really?
Yeah, but I also think men across the board like to be dominated. Doesn't
Why? Why
matter
is why?
because of this pressure of I think being a man is a different pressure in a lot of ways. You're constantly engaging in this very it must be very tiring powered play often with other men. Like you have the alphas, for example, and the beaters. You don't think that
I
that's a real
don't
thing?
think it is.
You
I
don't
don't
think
think it
so?
is. No, I don't think it is.
Why not?
I think being a man is much less pressure than being a woman.
You think it's nicer?
Much less pressure. Much less pressure. I don't agree.
Yeah.
I don't agree.
Oh, okay. So that's actually quite interesting. Why do you think? I definitely would agree in terms of looks, for example. It's more pressure to be a woman. There's like a massive pressure to be pretty, to be well presented, to be fashionable, yada yada yada. I'd say most of that pressure comes from other women as well, and gay men. Um, but I see. I like to observe men and their interactions with each other, and sometimes I'm like, oh, that must have hurt. Must have done.
Can you give an example of a
Or
situation?
like at the gym,
Yeah.
like someone who there's like a real desire to be the alpha male in the gym and to maintain that position.
For morons. For morons. So for morons, someone who goes in the gym and feels like they need to be the person in the gym, they're
Mm.
the alpha in inverted commas.
But just because they're a Moran doesn't make it invalid.
No, but most men aren't like that.
Okay.
Most men are going to the gym to train.
Mhm.
Most men will not be overly like aware of their physical appearance.
And maybe that's a problem actually. Maybe
But
they need to be.
no, I don't think. Well, but there's a growing number of men
No, I think they
who
should. I think
are.
men. I think everyone should care about their appearance.
They should care about their
That to a
appearance,
certain degree,
but
not necessarily spending loads of money on
they
it, but
should.
like
They should
your
care about their appearance,
health, you
but they shouldn't
know,
care about a hair being out
clean,
of place.
showered.
If
Yeah.
you're in the gym working out, you shouldn't care about what you're looking like in the mirror, and you
No.
shouldn't be giving it this.
What about as a chick?
It's different for a woman. It's different for a woman. I see it as acceptable a woman doing that
Hmm.
because a woman's appearance is much more important to them. It's much more valuable to a woman than a man's appearance is to a man.
And see, I think this is maybe one of the reasons why relationships are a struggle and a challenge these days, because I think men used to take much more care of their appearance than they do now. There was like, the suited and booted times, fucking slick. We need to bring that back. Now it's like, throw on a pair of jeans and a t-shirt. Men used to be in blazers.
Oh, gee,
Men used to
what's
have
wrong
a
with jeans and a
trimmed and
t-shirt?
moustache.
Jesus
This is what I'm
Christ.
saying. Do you know what I mean? Like it would be.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, and I love that look. I love that like vintage look on men because it really like shows this eye for detail. I'm just talking about
You're
like
talking about a style here, though.
no,
You're
no,
not
no, no,
talking
no, no,
about.
not necessarily, but no, but like it's interesting that women are because another thing, I don't think that is I don't think that is biological. I don't think that's
You
evolutionary.
don't
If
think
any,
what is?
that women making more of an effort. Because if you look at the animal kingdom, and even if you look how men were dressing like 50, 150 years ago, there was a real eye to detail. There was a real, it was peacocking. It's peacocking.
Where?
What do you mean? All over the world.
No.
Yes.
No. Two different places in different
1500s,
doing different things.
Tudors, men wearing those big ruffles, Victorian men, like
That was
the.
to do with the society at the time and the nature of that part of the world at the time. You're talking about UK specific.
I'm talking specific about the UK and a lot of cultures around the world. I'd say, I'm not saying that men have been more so like that than women. I'm just saying more than there is now.
Yeah, maybe.
More than there is now.
Yeah,
And
maybe.
it wasn't at odds with being alpha. It wasn't at odds with being a strong man. You could still very much like look after appearance and be quite particular about it.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean,
Convenience is favored for men these days.
what is
Convenience.
in terms of dress?
In terms of dress, in terms of style, yeah, I think so. In terms of how you present yourself.
I don't see an issue.
I'm not saying there's an issue. I'm just saying it's an observation.
Okay. How do we get on to that? We were talking about yeah, that's what we were talking about. We were talking about you were referencing observing men
Yeah.
and things being said, hurty feelings.
Yeah, I think it's and you said it's harder to be a woman than it is a man.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Well,
But that's interesting saying what we're going back to what we were saying earlier about because I would say it's harder for men in different ways. As like men are most likely to go to war. Men are, as like men are, if the house is burning down, men are the ones that's going to go in and are meant to save the family. So in that regard, it's harder for men when it comes to raising the children and sacrificing things in order to raise a family. Then it's the women, but we make different kinds of sacrifices. I'd say it's equally hard to be a man as it is to be a woman.
Still disagree. I
Okay.
still disagree. Being a man,
Mhm.
being a man, I am safe in the knowledge
Mhm.
that like there's almost half of the population on Earth who I could probably deal with in a scrap. Being a woman, they have to worry about almost everyone on the planet. Over 50% of the people on the planet are
Yeah.
tougher. Could literally, dominate
Yeah.
you physically.
100%. But
Just that aspect.
but women, for example, is more likely to be sexually assaulted, right? Which I would say that socially we would
Yeah.
say that sexual assault, rape is one of the worst things anyone could do.
Mhm.
But the way I've kind of framed it in my head is, and the way I learned jiu-jitsu as well specifically, was that if a man is assaulting you, he's not killing you. And in a certain scenario, that gives you an opportunity to defend yourself.
If a
If
man's
something, yeah,
assaulting you, he's not killing you.
if something, yes, it, like in the actual process of being assaulted, I've been sexually assaulted before, right? While he's trying to get his dick out of his pants, while he's trying to, like get on top of you, there's an opportunity, there's a window there to defend yourself if you're trained.
Yeah.
Whereas if we look at the statistics in terms of how men and women are assaulted, for example, like like one punch kills, for example, that's more likely to happen to a man. Getting stabbed randomly is more likely to happen to a man. Being like, attacked from the back, the back, like immediately to just kill you is more likely to happen to a man. A woman is more likely to be dragged. She's more likely to be abducted. She's more likely to, be pushed on the ground. Like
I
there's,
see what you're saying
and
now.
all I'm
Being
saying,
assaulted, not being killed. Yeah, I see what
is
you're saying.
that I think this is also one of the issues, one of the challenges that men have is that that kind of violence as well. It's like, yes, men are more likely to be perpetrators, but they're also very likely to be the victims of other men too.
Yeah, but part of the issue, not part of the issue. So what, like, we don't, and I'm going to speak for most men. I'm
Mhm,
going to take a liberty here and speak for most men. Okay, and guys, you can correct me if you want in the comments. Okay, but we don't want any betrayal of victimhood. We don't want any highlighting as being special in any way, shape, or form.
mhm,
The worst thing to come out of the last couple of years is International Men's Day. What the fuck is that all about? Like, we don't want it. We don't need it. We don't want any of that. I think the way most men exist
mhm,
in terms of their psychology,
mm,
we're looking for a mate. We're just getting on. We try not to be weak. Try not to be weak. Try not to be dominated. We're trying to feel. We're just trying to get on with what we think we should be doing,
mhm.
right? Like intrinsically.
You're not
Um,
trying to overthink your
no,
position.
and what we think we should be doing is earning money, providing, protecting.
Mhm,
That's what we should be doing. That's what most men,
yeah.
it's in them to do.
Mhm.
How they go about it sometimes isn't the best way to go about it. But and you're right, there are a shitload of inequalities that go against men, which don't get non spoken about. I can go and list a load of stuff because it infuriates me. It does
Mhm.
infuriate me. But it is just what it is.
I
It's
think it's
just what it is.
well, I think it's about being able to talk about it. You know, because I just want to make the clarification as well. I have been assaulted. I have had men be abusive to me. Um, but and women's self-defense is obviously something that's extremely important to me. I think the one thing that women have that men don't is that we talk about things that have happened to us quite deeply and at length. And that is, the most healing thing, isn't it? You could talk about your experiences, you can talk about how it hurt you, you can talk about how you think it's going to affect you going forward. I really do not know many men who do that with other men.
No, it's difficult to do.
And that's also, I read something about how, when men get partners, very often their partner's friends become their friends, and then if something happens to their partner, they find themselves socially isolated. That is an issue, like this not being able to feel connected to other people. That's why men's suicide rates are so high, is because it's this inability to talk about and connect.
Yeah, yeah, maybe. I mean, it is. So the challenge is for a man in terms of talking about feelings, and yeah, feelings, is that it is not instinctive to us to want to talk about those things
Yeah.
because you're expressing a weakness.
Hmm.
You're expressing a chink in your armor, right? And you're only comfortable doing that if the only possible time you're going to be actually comfortable doing that is if you're talking to someone who's neutral and is not going to go talking about it, or you've got trusted people in your circle who will receive that information from you and not think any less of you. And it's really difficult to find a circle of people like that. I'm very lucky. I've got a circle like that of people who I greatly respect, greatly respect. Men that I greatly respect. Like the most confident, uh, like capable men I will ever meet,
Hmm.
ever in my life. Like most of the kind of people that you want everyone to meet.
Yeah.
I wish everyone knew this guy, and there's women like that too. For men to have to find men like that in a circle that you can confide in, who when they ask you, "How's it going, Hugh?" and I can answer honestly
Honestly.
And I know that's not going to go anywhere else, and he won't think any less of me. In
Hmm.
fact, he'll think more of me because I'm being honest. That's invaluable, but it's so rare.
Yeah.
So rare. And that is partly
Whereas
as
that's
well
super
down.
common as a woman. We talk about things all the time that could and we'll make a joke about it, like, oh my god, I can't believe I did this, or "Oh, what do you think that how do you think about me feeling like this thing about this person?" That's just how we talk to each other, and it's you know a relief, isn't it, to not be judged as well. Or do you know what, also women, we can be very judgy, but it's in the moment we're just very open and we want to talk about things, we want to gossip, and we want to see how we're feeling and stuff.
Mm, mm,
But and
yeah.
also, look, women have had to be, strong and dominant, and all of those things are most men, not all men, but like some men into dominant women, but they might be quite, ashamed of that. But women have had to be dominant. Women have had to be strong on all of these male kind of typically male traits. But then when it comes to the reverse and men having like the the feminine traits of conversation, being open, being open minded with your friend group, and that doesn't work that way. It's like I think men have kind of, I don't know. I think men are in a bit of a no man's land at the moment in terms of self def, like how to self, how, and women as well. I think we're all kind of figuring out how to define ourselves, and
Yeah, the attack on the attack on masculinity has been real problematic. It's not been good for society. It's not been good at
yeah,
all.
and
It's been
and
terrible.
and I think there's been an attack on femininity as well.
An attack on feminism, maybe.
I think n-
Femininity, you reckon?
no, I think it is an actual attack on women as well,
Go on.
because I think that's why so many women are also confused about what we want, is because these traits of you know submissiveness and nurturing and um wanting to build a home and all of these things have actually been uh they're kind of demonized.
But that is coming from the same quarter.
Exactly, it's
It's
coming.
crazy.
Yes, it's the same origin.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And yeah, I agree with you then. I agree. And it's terrible. It's
And
real bad.
it's bad. I think the positive look though is just to see how connected our fates are. Men can't win without women winning, and vice versa.
No, no. Yeah, no, it's like a lot of things. I think the equality, so sexual equality movement, should we say, went too far.
Yeah,
You know, it, I say it went too far. It got taken too far. Got taken too far.
it was derailed, and it's ultimately because it's not about equality, it's about equity, isn't it? It's about having, we're all different. How can we make circumstances good for everyone, but not the same?
You can't do that, can you?
Yeah, it's impossible.
You need to make sure everyone's got the same opportunities.
Yeah,
But it is. I think it's starting to right itself. You
it
know,
started.
it's starting to right itself.
Hmm.
There was when I was growing up, again from the male perspective, when I was growing up, it was this is how I was taught by my dad. You again hold the door open for women. If you get on the tube or the bus and you're sitting down and all the seats are taken and a lady gets on, you stand up and offer your seat for the
Yeah.
lady, regardless of age. When was the last time you see that happen on a
Hmm.
train? You'll see it for a pregnant lady. You'll see it
Yeah.
for an old lady.
Yeah.
Maybe, maybe. And you'll have dozens of guys, all different ages, sat there looking at their phones and not paying any attention. And to me,
Yeah.
it's totally wrong. Because to me, it's like, where's your fucking respect?
Do you think
Where's the respect for women gone?
Yeah,
And what's destroyed the respect for women from those people is the
women.
feminine movement
Hmm.
aspects of it going too far.
Hmm.
And that's not to be, I'm not saying that the feminine movement is bad. If it didn't happen, we
Yeah.
wouldn't have sexual equality enshrined in law,
Yeah.
and all the other
Yeah.
positive things that have happened. but
Yeah.
on a basic level about how males and females interact and how what women feel about themselves and what the expectations of themselves are, and men,
Yeah.
a real problem at the moment.
Yeah.
Circling back round, then you get the rise of people like Andrew Tate, you know, a clever individual, not a nice guy, says some things he says, you go, huh, yeah, totally agree
Yeah.
with that. But most of what he says is bullshit.
Well, he's triggering people. He's getting to these young men, their insecurities, the heart of their insecurities. And there's a sprinkle of reason in there somewhere. There's, like he says that men and women are different. Women, are the ones that have the choice. These are all biological facts. But then you then apply um an emotional irrationality on top of that, find some sort of justification as to why you can now treat women like shit.
Yeah. And look at the personality he's what's the word, projecting
Yeah.
out of it. It's not a nice personality.
No, he's a
That is not a
awful.
guy I would want my daughters around.
Oh, absolutely
Any
not.
woman in my life who wouldn't want around that person at all. It's
Yeah.
like that. It's like an awful guy.
Yeah.
That, as in that personality. If you walked into a room with him and you didn't know him, you go, this guy's a bellend.
Yeah.
This guy's a bellend.
Yeah.
And yet he's got a massive following,
Yeah.
of impressionable people. And part of the issue is because he's a clever individual, he drops, like you're saying there, he drops things in there
A little
that are
kernel
correct. And you go,
of
ha!
truth.
And all of a sudden, people who
Yeah.
don't know any better thinks everything he says is gospel.
Yeah.
You go, no, 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 no. Absolute scumbag. And there's other people like him. It's a shame. It's a shame. But I don't know. It seems to be writing itself. It's just taking time. I want a return of chivalry. I want a return of men demonstrating respect for women by giving women things. Giving you my seat, holding the door open for you.
Yeah.
All these, they seem so little and so
Yeah.
subtle, but it's literally a demonstration of I respect you. You are absolutely vital. You are responsible for giving birth to every single person on this planet, and you're not as physically capable as men. We're going to look after you.
Yeah.
That,
Yeah.
that's how I see it.
Yeah.
As opposed to you're not capable, therefore I'll do everything for you. It's not that, which is how it gets misrepresented sometimes.
Yeah. I also think that, okay, so what would I want from women? I think it's harder because, and this is the thing as well, like for me, because obviously of my work and everything, I sometimes, I'm like, where would I, for example, fit into this kind of idea of an ideal femininity? I don't think it would,
An ideal feminist.
an ideal femininity. So it's I don't have an answer, but it just makes me think about, yeah, what does the world look in harmony look like? Because I think we would all look very different as well in a harmonious world, in an ideal society. Uh, yeah, we would be different people.
Yeah. Yeah. Would you be okay with if you had kids
Hmm.
going into the work you do?
I was having this conversation with my friend yesterday. Um, I think it's one of those things as I'd be happy as long as they were happy and safe. Um, I didn't want to do this work. I think there's a few jobs, not just sex work, but I think there's a few jobs in this world where people don't necessarily like dream about doing it. Um, so I would have acceptance as long as they were safe. It wouldn't be my dream for them. Um, but there are worse things to be doing. And I think ultimately the question is, if someone is happy, who's being, if someone's being taken advantage of, which can happen in any industry, I understand that sexual exploitation is different. Like the potentiality of that makes the sex industry, a highly debatable industry.
The potentiality of what? Sorry.
What word did I say? The potentiality of sexual exploitation is what makes people
Exploitation.
of
Okay,
sexual
right. Okay.
exploitation
Yeah.
makes the sex industry the subject of so much debate. Um, but it's a question that you wouldn't ask somebody if they had a job that wasn't, um seen as a good choice, I guess.
I don't think the exploitation would be as much of an issue if the industry was legalized. I don't think.
Yeah.
I think pretty sure it's the case that places where it is legalized, like the
Yeah.
rates of
Or
exploitation are much
decriminalized. Yeah.
lower. Mm, I think that's the case.
Yeah.
I couldn't
Exactly. Yeah.
back it up.
Yeah.
But
I
yeah.
th-
Anyway, interesting to talk about it, especially on that, the male female dynamics front.
I think look, I think societies where sex work is legal or decriminalized, a bar countries like Sweden and Norway where they have the Nordic model, which is a separate subject, I think. Um Countries where sex work is not illegal tend to be more open-minded liberal societies. There's an understanding that
where it's
sexuality
not legal,
no where it
where it
is
is
legal
legal.
and where it is decriminalized tend to be more open-minded societies. Tend to be.
Okay, that makes sense.
And I'm talking about sex work in all its shapes, in all its forms, like porn, full service, domination, whatever. Like if there's, we live in a in a liberal society, and sex work is decriminalized largely in this country. There are certain things that sex workers are still, advocating for, but yeah.
Mm, hmm. Um, can I ask you about Sex and Rage? Is
Yes,
that still going?
it is still going. Yeah.
So explain that to me, and why did you start that up?
So I started it in 2019 with my ex, and initially it was about building conversations, bridging conversations between sex workers and non-sex workers.
Between sex workers and non-sex
Yeah,
workers. Okay. So what triggered that?
being a sex worker. My ex
What were you
was
trying to achieve?
well, my ex wasn't a sex worker,
Okay.
and we were having a lot of conversations around, you know, a lot of reassurance from me to her. Um, but also then we kind of got into the wider conversations of, why is this such a taboo? What do people think about sex work? How do we create an opportunity for education around the industry, but also just kind of normalizing people's perceptions of what sex workers are like? That's why we started it.
Did she know? Did you say she? Did she know?
Yeah. Well,
Did she know
she knew. Yeah, yeah.
uh,
She knew I did.
before you got together?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
I'm always very open about it because I always have. I don't have anything to hide. For me personally, I've always been lucky enough that I've been able to do that. And
mm.
for me, it's kind of like, you know, this is. I just want people to know this is what you're going to get.
And how did those conversations go when you started off? Was it events where people were coming and non-sex workers meeting sex
Yeah, it
workers?
was.
Was it
Well, it
literally
was.
like
Yeah,
that?
we were doing lots of workshops. We would have, the first event we did was like a mini festival. It was over, I think, 3 or 4 days. So we had conversations on the history of sex worker
Mm.
of sex work. We had, um, workshops around like wrestling and bondage and different kind of like play that people really were really interested in. And we had some short films um, around sex work. Some were made by sex workers, some were more. Also, I'm saying the word sex work, and when I say it, I know that a lot of people don't like the word. Like maybe people who have a more um, a hostile view on the industry, maybe. So
Elaborate on that. What you mean? I don't understand.
because I think some people and like a lot of feminists who I actually really love um, don't have a favorable view of sex work, and they just think it's prostitution slash exploitation, really. So I just wanted to make that point because I think it's an interesting one the term sex work in itself is up for debate, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you, you. I nearly used the word empowering then. And I remember you mentioned empowering on the icebreaker, but I think, well, I mean, if you haven't got into the industry because of exploitation,
Yeah.
then it's not exploitation.
Yeah,
If it's
exactly.
by choice
Exactly.
and you're satisfied in doing it,
Yeah.
as in as a way to make money, who gives
Mhm.
who literally who
Right.
cares? Who
100%. People
cares?
do.
Well, I can understand why people
Yeah,
care.
I get it. I do. I so get it. Like one of my, originally what I wanted Sex and Rage to be was a place where people with different ideas around the industry, you know, who wanted to challenge the industry could come and have those discussions. But it's very difficult to do that. It's very difficult to do that in like highly politicized uh spaces. Even though I didn't want it to be necessarily political in that way, sex work is just one of the most divisive subjects on the left and both on the left and the right. So it ended up my challenge with Sex and Rage is that I felt it became a bit of an echo chamber. So yeah, that's kind of one of the things I've been thinking, like, how do I shift that?
Because it was mostly people who are,
Who are already pro sex work and who are already
yeah.
open minded in that way. But there's I love a
I,
hard conversation,
I don't think it would be something that was ever widely acceptable to most of a population, even in even in the countries where I think even in the countries where it is legal and they're used to it being legal and it's a thing. I think there's probably still a significant percentage of
I
like, oh, it's wrong, it shouldn't happen, because it's perceived as a
yeah,
probably because it's perceived as this really intimate thing, like
yeah.
the most intimate thing. Uh, yeah, the most intimate thing that like two human beings can do,
Mhm.
two or more human beings can do, and then to monetize that, this thing is seen as valuable and directly connected to love with a life partner.
Do you think um you would be more upset if your partner had a emotional, very deep emotional intimacy with someone else that she didn't tell you about, or if she had a one night fling with somebody that was just physical and was never going to happen again?
What's the deeply emotional one? Give me an example. I need
So,
specifics.
hopes and dreams, staring into each other's eyes, sensual.
Oh, they're both equally bad.
They're both equally
Both equally
bad.
bad. Both are
Mhm.
getting dumped in both. Wow. Almost the emotional one, almost certainly. The sexual one, definitely. Bye.
Mm,
See you later.
mhm.
No, but that is, I don't have,
I think,
I have very little tolerance for that.
yeah, I think for me, like, cheating isn't the worst thing someone can do, like physical cheating. Um, in the sense that if my partner came to me and was like, "This thing happened, I'm really sorry about it," I don't think I'd hold it against them for a long time. I think it'd be something we could definitely work through. If they were like, "Look, we've never done anything, but there's just this feeling." It's when people get that kind of like longing in their eyes, then I'd probably be like, "Well, we're gonna have to break up, aren't we? Because there's something being lost here." You know.
Yeah, I think that comes back to something you said earlier on, in that understanding understanding what you need and what you want sexually,
Hmm.
which most
Most people don't
most
know.
people don't know.
Yeah.
Most people, even in those who've been in longer term relationships,
Yeah.
don't know
Yeah. Yeah.
the amount of probably the amount of couples out there that don't have the healthiest of sex
Yeah.
lives. Are just getting on. They're just getting on with life, getting
Yeah.
on because that's what we do.
Yeah.
I got to get a partner.
Yeah.
I got a long term partner. I got to have kids, and I got to have a job. Like getting just literally going through the motions. And yeah, you do have to do all those things, but you need
Yeah.
to pay them attention.
Pardon?
You need to pay them attention.
100%.
Even more so these days because it's so easy to find someone else. It's so easy
It's
to find
not
someone
though.
else.
It's not easy to find someone else, but I do think
You
it's
really don't think so?
nah. I don't think so. Just because you're with someone doesn't mean that you've like. I don't think so. I don't think it's any easier. And also apps have taken away the joy, the spark of like just meeting someone. Do you know what I mean? Like there's nothing beats that. And people settle quickly nowadays because they're just scared of being alone.
Because it's on top. People are on
And
top.
yeah, people are on tap. But it's hard to meet. I mean, yeah, I don't like.
You don't have to work hard at relationships anymore. Going back to you saying about the boomers, right?
Mm,
You meet someone, they're right, and you meet someone from your village or your town or your the district that you're from or whatever you want to call it. Because there's not many others, and you get on.
but this is so like I really do think we're creating this kind of nostalgia for the past. I do. Like I do think there's been a loss of values. I do think there's been a loss of like, man, women. I do. But at the same time, I think there's a lot of romanticizing how happy relationships were back then. Because a lot of it was putting up with each other.
Oh no, I didn't. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I didn't want to represent it like that.
Yeah.
I think that the point I was going to make was because it was so hard to meet other people. There
Yeah.
was a
You
literally
made
a
an
lack of
effort.
options
Yeah.
that you had to put so much more effort into the relationship
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
make it work,
Yeah. I
right?
agree with that.
But also, conversely, there's a lot of stuff that you just sweep under your emotional
For
carpet and just get
sure.
on with it.
Yes.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Just get on, and live a life of misery.
Exactly. Exactly. We know. No, I think it's important. I think it's important not to be all doom and gloom. It's important to say, do you know what? In especially as a woman, I'm happy that this is the era that I'm born in, and I have all these options open to me. Even though there's too much choice, very often, um, there's the freedom. We can have this conversation, for example. That might not have happened even in recent history. I think because everything I think this is quite a nice, equitable conversation. It's not, you
Yeah,
know,
it's refreshing to be able to talk about the topic, especially on like the feminine, masculine topics like this, which you know, because we're recognizing totally different, right? So you're recognizing, and you do recognize the two different things, and
yeah.
and the male and the female, there are different attributes, strengths and weaknesses, pros and cons.
Hmm.
It's just the way it fucking is.
Yeah.
Now, the things we can change and are sensible to change and improve on, we should absolutely do so. Give women the right to vote.
Yeah.
For example, this is stuff for the men's side I'd like to
Hmm.
change. Um, and that's where it should sit. But then society runs away with itself, and you get very weak men, a much more weak men
Yeah.
becoming becoming present in the world from the
Yeah.
people who go into the gym and need to be the alpha, need to be an alpha male because they got to be the big loud one talking and dropping the weights down or whatever. To the guy who's out and he can't walk out of his door without a hair being out of place. He's got his Louis Vuitton man bag. He's got a skinny tight jeans. He's got no socks on. Everything
Don't
has
you
to be
just
pristine.
hate those skinny
Pristine.
jean wearing,
Yeah.
soy latte
Yeah.
drinking?
Fucking soy lattes. But you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree.
They look great. I wouldn't trust them in a fight.
And I guess the opposite of that would be, why do some women have to, like me, show everything on the internet and sexualize themselves to such a degree where, of course you're not going to find a man because you're hypersexualizing yourself. That's the argument. And yeah, I'm not, it doesn't bother me. But there is that kind of, women were once extremely, don't show your ankles. And now it's like you can see everything online at all times for free, really. Um, and it's funny. I think this is also why for me, like I do in some ways compartmentalize aspects of my identity in order to have a holistic, but
Aspects of your identity.
yeah, because I am quite. I'm a very central person. I like to, I know that I present, obviously, especially with work, in a sexual way. But when I'm in the gym, for example, I'm training. I'm, I work very hard. I love to read. I'm very intellectual. I went to, um, I have a degree in politics, philosophy, history. I'm a very well-rounded person. And I think therefore it's easier for me to have that conversation because one, I know it is a conversation and it's something that should be debated, the sexualization of women. I think it's important to have that conversation. I can still do that kind of stuff at the same time. I think while we're figuring shit out, I think it's the first time that women have been able to, present themselves in a certain kind of way without being, ostracized from society. And
What do you mean by the sexualization of women?
what do I mean by it?
Yeah. So you're insinuating that women have been sexualized over the last N years?
No, I think this is when we have started to sexualize ourselves more in some ways. I mean, look,
What do you mean sexualize?
presenting yourself sexually. So if I, we okay, if I am gonna make some content, I'm gonna wear booty shorts, I'm gonna do a split, and I'm gonna wear a tight sports bra. That's me making obviously sexualized content. If I'm just in like, you know, just loose ski pants or whatever, and a loose top, there's there's an image there, isn't it? We can, as soon as you open your app, you're seeing sexualized content of women.
Uh, I all I see that as
Mm.
is there is a range of how attractive someone wants to make themselves appear,
Right.
right?
So
To
you're
the
saying
opposite
that,
to the hang on, to the opposite sex, right?
yeah,
Yeah. And that can start off with dressing well, right?
right,
The extreme other end of that,
yeah,
it goes from dressing well,
yeah.
dressing the way they're getting your hair or your look or the whatever it is, the way that hits the audience you want to hit.
But
The
you,
extreme end,
Mhm.
the other end of that range is in the nude, right?
Okay,
Okay, so I just see it as a range of, okay, I'm trying to make myself look attractive to
right,
get attention,
okay.
right?
Do you know what it is? Because if I'm trying to be appealing, if I'm trying to look good, like yeah, I hear what you're saying. I know if I wear a certain outfit, it's going to get a man's attention in a certain way. If I wear a different outfit, I know it's going to get a different kind of male attention, or one might not elicit any male attention at all, you know? So, and might still look good. The girlies will compliment me, but the men are like, yeah, you look all right, kind of thing. I don't think like it's become this really, I don't know, women like this question of sexualizing us. We can have the conversation without it, and it's fact, isn't it? It's women signaling sexual availability. Whether or not anything's going to happen with that or not still has elicits a kind of reaction, doesn't it?
I Well, but when they do that, so
Yeah.
if let's say you do that online and you were in a provocative or a
Hmm.
sexualizing outfit, I don't see that as you are signaling availability. You're trying to get attention. You're
But
trying to capture attention.
but it is sexual availability. That's what men are picking up on. That this is a sexually available woman. That's what I'm interested in. That's, there's a
Uh,
physiological response
okay, yeah,
therefore.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
just
Not conscious
it's
thinking.
not conscious.
'Cause obviously,
No.
consciously they go, that woman's not
Yeah.
probably
Yeah.
not sexually available.
Exactly.
Okay,
Exactly.
yeah, I see what you're saying there.
Going
Tapping
back
into that. Yeah, laws of
going back to
attraction.
this idea of men compartmentalizing, because a woman who's going around in booty shorts and a little crop top all the time in the dead of winter, yeah, you might look and think she's hot, and you would, but would you date her though?
Mm, yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, yeah. But difference between men and women.
Difference
Difference
between
between
men
men
and
and women.
women. Yeah. Well,
Uh,
I mean, yeah. No, if a man was walking down the road in the dead of winter with no top on, we'd just be like, "Fucking hell, put some clothes on." I
some
think
wouldn't. Some
contextually,
women wouldn't.
like women don't necessarily pay for men to take their clothes off, whereas men do.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Anyway,
It's one of my favorite subjects, in case you didn't know.
Ah, let's talk about fighting. Can we?
Yes, of course.
How was your experience with Total Combat 3 compared to the this is not Lee prompting me with questions, by the
Oh
way.
yeah.
I'm interested.
Mm.
I went to Total Combat 2, which was London.
Oh, I wasn't. at Total Combat 2.
I thought no, you were at 3.
I was at 3. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
I went
yeah.
to number 2,
Mhm,
so I
mhm.
saw the setup and all of it. It was an
Yes.
amazing event to be
Yeah.
at. Then Total Combat 3 happened where you fought.
Yeah.
So what was your experience as a fighter with that event? Because obviously it's a very new event and it's very different.
Yeah.
And you fought in other
I
promotions
mean,
as
it was
well.
amazing. It was like really well run for a start. Um, it was super friendly. The team is so, so nice. I think what they're doing, giving fighters a platform, is brilliant. I'd not fought on TV before, so
Oh, wow.
that was interesting. Like
Or was that nerve-wracking?
oh yeah, really. Like especially in the couple hours before, I was like, hang on a second, people are going to be able to hit pause and rewind if I get fucked up. So I was like, oh shit.
Yeah, yeah, and it was a meme.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
exactly,
yeah.
exactly. And that's what, especially when they're talking about we want things that are really going to grab the audience's attention, things that are viral, things that are gonna, people are gonna watch that back and be like, oh my god. And there's always, someone's got to be knocked out, or someone's got to lose, or someone's got to,
It's all about the gram. It's all about the
it's
gram.
all
There's
about
10
the
seconds on the
gram.
gram.
It's
That's
all
what
about
it's
the
all about.
gram, exactly.
That's what it's all about. Yeah, what was your opponent like? Did you seen much of her before? Did you know of her before?
I've obviously researched her,
Hmm.
and watched some of her fights. She'd fought a friend of mine, Kate Bassick, so gave that a watch. I wasn't. The thing that made me nervous about not nervous. The thing that I knew that I was going to have to watch out for her was just her grit. I didn't. She's obviously a very strong fighter. I think the thing that makes her a strong fighter is she's just. I could tell. I'll throw something. She's just gonna walk through it, which is what she was trying to do. Just like steam forward. I was like, oh, I think it'll be more of like a psychological thing with her, less than technique.
And how did that work out in the fight?
And that's
So
what it
see-
was.
so
Yeah,
see-
that's what it was. And she did make a comment at the press conference about how, oh, I'm gonna hit you harder than you've ever been hit in your life. And I was like, I fought some tough chicks. Got like UK number one at my gym, Marie McManaman. I think she fights at 52, but like absolute beast.
Where's your gym? What
The Knowlesy Academy.
the
The Knowlesy
oh,
Academy.
the Knowlesy Academy.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. KNOWSLEY.
Yes.
Yeah.
So like John Haggerty's gym, Liam Nolan's gym. Yeah, but like incredible fighters there, and amazing women. So and plus, like I was saying, I've fought in Estonia before. I fought in 4-ounce gloves before. So and I was hit, hit pretty hard in that fight. So like I know what it's like to get hit hard, So I wasn't worried about that.
So what? So how did you? If you knew that was what her not attitude, the way she is, the grit, that sort of walk through things, come straight back at you. Did you change your Did you change your game plan? Do you have do you have like a standard game plan you go into, or do you really adjust things depending on the fighter?
It
Like-
was to kind of keep her at bay, really, and I did not keep as much as I was meant to.
How are you intended to do that? Long range strikes,
Long range,
legs.
yeah, just keep her at the end of my kicks. Just like working the jab, keeping her at distance. Obviously it was in the oval, just making sure I was moving off and kind of just keeping her at the end, keeping her long range, moving off, just assessing which direction she was going in and circling off. And obviously with the pit, with those sloped sides, it's quite difficult. I didn't know what that was gonna be like. I thought it was gonna, give an opportunity to be a bit flashy, like jump off. But when you're in the middle of the fight and someone's charging at you, it's quite difficult to use the environment in that way. I think next time because I know what it's like now. Next time it will be much easier. But yeah, that was all new.
It's an unusual setup that the pit.
I really
the
like
slope.
it.
Did you the first time? So the first time you experienced one that was literally
Yes.
on the day.
Yeah.
Did you get a chance to go into it before the fight?
No.
No,
No.
you're joking.
No.
I thought you'd be able to go in there beforehand,
No,
before the whole event started.
No.
Oh my god.
I mean, maybe others did, but I didn't. I didn't have that moment.
Huh.
I'm glad though, because I would have overthought it.
Yeah,
I
and
would
maybe
have
start
overthought
changing
it, and I'm a
things.
big overthinker. So that's been kind of my psychological game plan, I guess, is to stop overthinking.
Does that happen in the fight then, you're thinking?
Yes, yeah, yeah. That's
Really?
why that's why was surprised that I'd won, is because I'd overthought everything I'd done wrong instead of thinking about the things I'd done right. There's like my mate who I fought in my last fight. We fought and then we became friends. Sent me a screenshot of me being like, because she was like, "Babes, you need to stop doing this," because I had the exact same photo in our fight where I won,
Mm.
and then I'm like, huh? And it's just because my first fight that I won when I was fighting when I started fighting with Knowlesy Academy was I just burst into tears because I was like just thinking about what I'd done wrong after winning.
Mm.
So
Oh,
I am
after winning, you
after
burst into
winning.
tears
Yeah,
because of what you'd done wrong, or
yeah,
you thought you'd done wrong.
yes. I'm
Huh.
very like that as a person. I'm very self-critical
That's a lot of
and
pressure on yourself.
pardon.
That's a lot of pressure on
Yeah, yeah.
yourself.
But I've always been like that. I've always been very harsh on myself.
Makes for good preparation, though, I suppose.
Yeah, a lot of I try to meditate every day now, unless I'm hungover or I'm late. I'll meditate, and a big thing for me in this fight camp was being positive about myself. Um, thinking about I was listening to a book called Shambhala by Chogyam Trungpa, which is uh, about warriorship essentially, and like the spiritual aspects of warriorship. Just because it helps me kind of get out of my head a little bit and like think about fear as a concept, as a philosophical concept. And the one really interesting quote that I'm writing my next Substack article about is my article is going to be called "On the Fear of Being Ourselves," and he has a line in it where he says most fear is because we fear ourselves before anything else, which is when you're in a I guess if you when you go in, like, of course you're going to be scared. I guess it's the same as war, like in combat, like of course you're going to be scared. And this idea of the fear being self-directed sounds a bit delusional, but I do think there is something about if you think if you're scared of not being able to complete something, you really just won't engage with it anyway. You have to kind of almost be like, I'm not scared of myself first. Everything else is external. I need to just focus on me and what I can do and believe in myself and not be scared of being the best version of myself and approaching life and everything we want to challenge ourselves to do in that way.
Try and unpick that. So basically,
See how I told you I overthink?
so understand and basically accept your capability.
Yes.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. Yeah. You have to because I can really get into my head and be like, you're a terrible fighter. You're bad at everything you do. I'm really like that.
You have that
100%.
really
Yes.
that dialogue in your head,
Yeah.
really?
Especially when I feel shit
Oh
about
my
myself. Yeah.
god, that must be horrendous
Yeah,
to
it's horrible.
exist with. And I know it's
Yeah.
relatively common, right?
Yeah.
But like an actual voice.
Yes. When I was a teenager, my first thought every day was I hate myself. That was horrible.
Why? What did you hate?
Honestly, just so much, everything. Like from, thinking I wasn't intelligent to my physical appearance to how I'd go over conversations with people. It was really bad. It was really bad. I think people see me and they see a very confident person, but I dealt with like quite deep depression and anxiety for a long time.
Where did that insecurity come from, though?
You know, like
Okay.
it was. I was in a difficult family dynamic
Yeah.
in that those crucial periods of your life where you're developing. And I think it's
A
learned.
challenging upbringing is what brought it about.
Challenging
Challenging
upbringing.
upbringing.
I think a lot of these behaviors are learned as well, not necessarily because of how people are talking to you, but because you see people thinking that way about themselves,
Mm.
or you pick up on it. You know, I'm a sensitive person. I don't mean that I'm an empath kind of way, but like I am quite sensitive and I can feel how people are feeling. And the people that were around me at that time, I think, were quite negative towards themselves, and I learned that.
And I've heard that before from people, and I just find it
Have you
astounding.
never
And
suffered with anything like that before?
not like that. When I was young, I I was polar opposite of what I am now. Really low self esteem, really low
Hmm.
self confidence, really socially awkward. Um,
I mean, I hear that. I had to teach myself sort of small talk. I remember like the specific
oh,
moment.
small talk is such a challenge for me now, even these
Well,
days.
yeah, I remember, but I realized you need it in life, and I remember the specific moment was like, I need to get better at this because this can't go on. Like, it-
Yeah, yeah. If you try and force it, it's so awkward.
it's
Like, yeah,
horrible.
yeah. But so I had, that's the way I was. But I never had an internal dialogue like that
Mm,
with
that's
those.
interesting.
It's just like,
That's so
wow.
interesting. Do you think men have less internal dialogue though than women? Is that part of the problem?
Ooh, which problem?
The problem of men being more depressed and more suicidal, let's say, because there's less internal dialogue about how you're feeling. Because I definitely have conversations with myself. I talk to myself
No,
all the time.
I think probably the majority of the case where probably the biggest reason that more men commit suicide than women do is just that we're more we're more comfortable with violence and pulling the trigger or
Do you
doing
think
something
that's what it
violent to
is?
ourselves. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Interesting.
Um,
But isn't there something about how women have more, like maybe make more attempts? Men are more successful? Am I wrong there?
don't know. Maybe I know that much fewer women
Are
will. So if
successful?
they're going to kill themselves with a
Yeah,
weapon, for example,
yeah,
they won't use a gun,
yeah.
and very few women would shoot themselves in the head because
Mm,
of the
yeah.
this thought of
Ew.
spoiling the face.
I'm
It's mad, isn't it?
I want to die, but I still want to be pretty. I
We've gone
get
from
it.
internal dialogue to
I think about it all the
suicide.
time.
My
Like
God.
my gran always used to say, always wear nice underwear because if you get hit by a bus, someone's gonna see. So
Um, Going back to fear. So, do you believe that fear can be harnessed?
yes, I think this is what I'm writing about. I think it's actually a positive emotion. I think it's been deemed as a negative emotion, but actually fear is one of the most powerful emotions we experience because
By positive, you mean necessary, as
by
opposed to a
positive,
good.
no, by positive I mean good.
Okay, go on.
Fear is what keeps
Interesting.
us out of danger. It's what makes us push ourselves. It represents challenge. It represents like humans are fearful. That's why we've achieved so much. Is because we the desire to be safe is keeps us going. The desire to protect our families and our immediate communities is how we've managed to build civilization. And fear is the thing that has driven us.
Yeah, one of the things. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I agree. I mean, obviously, it's a necessity, but I don't know. I think conscious fear is a problem. I think I would just, if I was a fighter, then I would see being fearful as an issue.
So if
Nervous, acceptable.
so when you're serving, is that like how do soldiers experience fear?
I only experienced it once.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Mm.
And that was so, and just to add context to that, I was in a lot of, and there's not me blowing smoking my own trumpet, but I was in a lot of uh, life-threatening situations
Mhm.
for a long time at different times,
Right.
over about 11 years of serving. Some of those were really, really intense. And the only time I ever experienced fear, as in I actually felt I am afraid right
Mm,
now, was in a situation where we were getting attacked and I couldn't do anything about it. We were going to attack in a particular way,
right.
and there was nothing I could do about it. I was helpless. I was
This
totally
is so
helpless.
interesting
Yeah.
that you've only
Where,
experienced
where
one.
so if it kind of comes back to we talk about understanding capability and very early on in the podcast, maybe on the ice we could talking about it, but if I the way to eliminate fear, I think, is to you have to be capable, understand how capable you are,
Mhm. Mhm.
and understand the situation you are in,
Yes.
right? Whether
Yes.
that's a fight or whether that's
Yes.
like
Yeah.
some life threatening thing. If you understand all those things, okay, I know I understand the situation I'm in.
Mhm.
I understand what I'm capable of,
Mhm.
and I understand what steps I can take to reduce the risk to me
Yeah.
right now. Then those three things, I don't think fear creeps in. You eliminate any one of those things, and then you've got doubt, and it's like I'm not sure if I'm doing the right thing or what I'm supposed to do, and
Mm.
then it's fear because you may fuck up here, and it could
Mhm.
have serious repercussions. Fighting, you're going to get knocked out or seriously injured, you know, or lose your belt or whatever. Serious repercussions. If it's life-threatening stuff, obviously you're going to lose your life, you know. But those two types of fear in the fight game and in the real
Real
world,
world. Yeah.
those two types of fear are the same thing.
Yeah.
The
Exactly.
same
Yeah.
thing. When
I
adrenaline's
agree.
pumping, they're
Yeah.
the same thing.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
which
But it's
is why I have
interesting.
so much respect for fight. I've never been in a ring and never fought. You know, why you have so much
You've
respect for fighters.
experienced, like your most people rarely die in a fight, but in combat, that's a reality. So I do find it interesting that, yeah, I do find it interesting you've only experienced fear once, because I think I'm like there's that, that becoming friends with fear thing is kind of how I want to progress. Just like, oh, hello, like I know this feeling, and the more I fight, the more I feel that as well. It's like you just have to completely accept it and in a weird way enjoy it, in a weird way, or just like have this, yeah, just this deep acceptance of it. Um, but yeah, I'm like I'm gonna come out alive. I'm gonna come out on the other side.
Yeah, but there is the real possibility of like violence having a consequence.
Yeah, like being injured and what have you. But I've seen people be battered, and then an hour later they're having a beer. Do you know what I mean? So that is also like that's fine. You're most likely going to be fine. Yeah, you might not be able to train for a couple of months. That's terrible, but you have your life. Like,
When did you start fighting competitively?
or when I was probably my first one was I was like maybe like 10 or something.
Oh, that young.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh,
I was
okay.
in karate, so I was competing fairly regularly. But it was so weird. I have all like medals and like Jordan Thomas, who's a childhood friend of mine who was commentating on Total Combat. He reminded me, like last year or something. He was like, "Oh yeah, it was like, I was really impressed that you won the junior British, got silver, um, silver in the junior British championships in karate when we were like 15." I was like, I don't remember that, and I was only training like twice, like one day a week.
One day
Because
a week, and you won
yeah,
the
because I
silver in
was
the British
training with his
Championships.
dad was my coach, and my mum and my dad would drive me to Luton like once a week. Because I wasn't training with them at the time, so they would drive me to Luton one day a week, and I totally forgot about it.
And you weren't training all the rest
I
of
was
the
training
week.
one day a week,
There were kids there training every day of the week,
and I
probably,
was
and you only
like,
got
what
silver.
could I have done if I was like, was in a position? And then that's also one of the reasons why I stopped doing karate, because it was just impossible to, I was training with the best in the world, but I wasn't getting enough training. So I wanted to do something that I could take ownership over. I could train as much as I wanted, and that's how I started doing jiu-jitsu. So
But so is your priority? But is your focus now jiu-jitsu, or is it Muay Thai?
it's Muay Thai.
It's Muay Thai.
Yeah.
Muay Thai. I've been to a couple of amateur, like inter club Muay Thai fights,
Bouts. Yeah.
events
Yeah.
here in London. So a couple of years ago, I got introduced to a Brazilian lady, like she's like this high, who started Muay Thai not long before I met her
Mm.
actually, and we ended up going to watch her fight a girl called Bruna Silva, and that was my first introduction to like Muay Thai really, apart from doing some on and off sort of pad work with a Muay Thai fighter years ago. And the underground, I want to call it the underground, the interclubs, it was frightening. Like I was like flipping heck. Like the referees weren't paying attention, and you were just like having a nat. It was very amateur style, and you got someone's gonna get fucking hurt, yeah, and super violent. Obviously, Muay Thai is super violent, but it was because of the level of the fighters. It just seemed really, what's the word? I want to say reckless in the way it was organized and managed was reckless,
Mm.
but also that's kind of the only way you can gain experience in doing it
Oh, and
before you get it.
and that like that sounds like it was the people running it.
Oh yeah, oh
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
It was the people running it. Oh
yeah.
yeah, the people running it. Yeah, there's a club. Where did I go to? There's a club. Oh, I can't remember the name of it. I think it's near Clapham, maybe. Anyway, went in this club to watch her fight,
Mm.
and the ring was had been put on the stage, and the back of the ring, the ropes, right, were about 4 inches from a brick wall. And every time the fighters, got to that side of the ring, the referee would go behind it and put his arm
Well,
up.
that just sounds
In case
silly,
anyone got
doesn't
their
it?
head smashed off the brick wall.
That,
Honestly,
that
I was
sounds
like, what is going
I mean,
on?
that sounds ridiculous. But most Muay Thai gyms aren't like that,
Well, these are Muay Thai events, not in Muay Thai gyms.
right?
These are either like MMA gyms or they were. I saw one in Gym Box,
Right. And
which was
so
carnage.
MMA, the reason why I actually love MMA and I would do MMA, but I've never found a gym that I've clicked with. And I think the mentality of a lot of MMA gyms are very different to like the more traditional gyms. Like if they just do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or just do Muay Thai or karate, I just find the mentality of it much more different,
In what way?
a bit more thuggish.
In
And
the
I
MMA
say that,
gyms,
yeah, and I say that with love and respect for all my
thuggish.
a bit more thuggish, yeah. Just less of a kind of I like the kind of you know the the traditional elements of martial arts. I like that discipline, that kind of mental discipline. I like the fact that you respect your teacher. I really like that. I think that's what creates social harmony and social cohesion. I don't think MMA gyms have that
Discipline, respect, being humble,
in the same way.
respecting your
And I think
opponent.
this is the thing. If you think you can batter anyone, there's no humility there. MMA gyms are full of, hubris in a way that I kind of, we're all mortal at the end of the day. And I think MMA gyms really prize this you can't fuck with me energy.
Why do you think that is?
I think it's just the people that it attracts. I think it's because the- I think a lot of MMA gyms look down on tradition, and
Hmm.
and I am, despite my what people might think, I do respect tradition. In some ways, I'm quite traditional. Even like in some ways, I'm not traditional at all. But in terms of how society should run, I think I'm quite. Maybe I have some more conservative values than people might expect.
Oh, we had the conversation before we started. I
Yeah,
totally agree now.
yeah, yeah.
But do you think though maybe that with that sort of thuggishness in the MMA gyms that you're alluding to, do you think that that is maybe because the MMA industry, that is what they are
That's what they're looking for.
attracting
Yeah,
and what they're looking for?
yeah,
The shit talking,
yeah.
the ego, that
Hmm.
hyper masculinity, that
Like, don't get me wrong. Of course, not all fighters are like that. And to be honest, I think the best fighters come from a more traditional background. So like they'll have started doing Muay Thai, or they would have started doing Brazilian Jiu Jitsu or karate or kickboxing or something a bit more that has a bit more formality around it, I guess you could say. Like, Chanel Dyer, who's also from the Nazi Academy originally. She now fights at GB Top Team. Has a UFC debut on Saturday. A phenomenal fighter, very strong Muay Thai background, and then Jiu Jitsu. And then that's kind of how, um, I mean, she might correct me, but I think that's, one of the reasons why she's such an exceptional fighter. Same. And then if you look at like, a lot of the UFC fighters like Valentina Shevchenko, Rose Namajunas, I've like very strong Muay Thai background. Israel Adesanya, like amazing quick kickboxer. And I just think that having that base is really important.
And you also become, an expert in an art
In an
as
art,
opposed to
yeah.
being an all
A
rounder.
jack of all trades, yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, maybe the case. Yeah. The thing is, I like the shit talking
I
because
do, yeah,
it's
I get it.
entertainment. It's
Yeah, of
entertainment.
course, of course.
But I prefer the humble traditionalist,
Mhm.
definitely, because because it espouses the kind of the people that I would like and respect in real life.
Yeah,
I wouldn't want to be around a shit talk in real life. I'd want to be
yeah,
around a Lyoto Machida,
yeah, yeah,
or
yeah,
for example. But the problem is it sells.
yeah.
It sells, you know. The worst thing is when you get someone who's trying to be a shit talker and is not good at it and
Not good at it,
blatantly
exactly.
crap at
And
it.
this is the
You go,
thing, is
what are
like
you doing, man?
most people aren't actually good at it. They'll
No,
just say,
it's difficult.
like they'll say shit about your mom or like you're a dickhead. It's like, well, what? Come
Yeah.
on. Like if you're gonna cuss the person out, cuss them out properly.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, when's your next fight then?
I don't know
You don't know.
yet. Yeah, I'm gonna find out probably in the next couple of weeks. Maybe July the 4th. Have got my own something then, which is also my birthday. So yeah, maybe then.
What's your training tempo when you don't know what's coming up?
I'll be in the gym like pretty much every day.
As in, okay, right,
Yeah.
as in training, fight
Yeah.
training, and everything.
Yeah. I had a bit of an old injury that I kind of was nursing over this fight. Not gonna say what it is in case anyone is. But I needed to give it a bit of a rest. But yeah, this I'll be back in the gym this Saturday.
Do you think you'll be back on Total Combat at some point?
I would love to be. I hope so.
Yeah,
I
that'd
hope
be good.
so.
Another London event, hopefully.
Another London event.
Must be having one. Must be
Yeah,
having
yeah,
one.
they've
Yeah.
got a couple. Yeah,
Liverpool's too far.
it is.
My
Although I
God,
do love it though. I do love Liverpool, and I had such a great time.
I enjoyed it. I say enjoyed it. I've gone there once before. Went up there a second time recently. Oh, to see Lee for the
Hmm.
podcast, the Lee podcast. I've got to go there again now. But yeah, down to London would be good. Down to London would be good. What have we not covered that you wanted to cover? You didn't come in with a list. I had a list,
You
not
had a
you.
list, yeah.
Yeah, but so in fact, no. One more thing.
Yeah.
Substack. What is the Substack about? How often are you writing, and why did you start it?
My Substack is about
And once you've done this, we're going to get onto a bunch of questions that are in the chat here.
yes. My Substack is about um sex, morality, censorship, and fighting.
Sex, morality, censorship, and fighting.
Those
All
are
right.
like the four big themes, I'd say.
Talk to me about censorship. In what regard? What are you talking
So
about?
I wrote a piece recently on the choking ban and why I'm against it. In
On the
porn.
what ban?
The choking ban in porn and why I'm against it.
Didn't know about that. Okay.
Yeah, it's come into effect, I think, very soon. And the
The choking man is what is the choking man?
so if they say specifically women, but if someone is being choked aggressively in porn, um,
Even
the-
if it's acting,
even if it's acting,
Yeah.
yeah. And they've done
it's
this.
not allowed
It won't be allowed anymore. Yeah,
in the UK.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Which I have my issues with, because the whole point was like the argument is that men have become more violent because of porn. To which I say, so that like centuries of domestic abuse and domestic violence, and the raping and murdering of women. What was that because of then?
It's a claim you can't verify either.
It's not a
How
claim.
can they
Yes,
verify
exactly.
that?
How do you know that?
Nonsense.
And
Nonsense.
I think also for women, it gives this shame of like being choked during sex. Is you shouldn't want that. You're weird if you want that. So that's why I'm against it. That's like some of the reasons why I'm against it. And I'm just against censorship in general. I think if two adults are consenting and the person watching is consenting, I don't think it should be a problem. So I wrote about that. I wrote a piece recently on why I fight, which is quite self-explanatory. Um, like I said, I'm writing a piece at the moment called "On the Fear of Being Ourselves," which I'm hoping I'll finish in the next. I've been so busy in fight camp and starting my own podcast with a friend of mine called Lost Patriots.
What's it called?
Lost Patriots.
Lost Patriots. You
Yes.
started already.
Started it. Haven't
How,
released anything yet, but we'll be releasing soon.
so nothing's released yet.
Nothing's released yet, but you'll be able to find us on Instagram on Lost Patriots.
Already. I'll put the link to
Yes.
that
Yeah.
in this
Yeah. Yeah.
description. Yeah. Okay, cool.
And yeah, so Lost Patriots, writing for Lost Patriots as well via Substack, which is going to be about national identity, being a patriot, especially as a minority, how we can get minorities to feel more British is going to be the trajectory of that
Why do you
writing.
want to do that?
Why?
Why would you want to make minorities feel more British?
Because
I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm asking you.
I think if we live in a country, basically over the years, I've heard a lot of people say, I think this country's shit. And when I was young, I didn't see myself as British. I went to an ethnically white minority school, both my primary school and my secondary school.
So the white were in the minority there.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we kind of all just said, oh, I'm not British, I'm a Londoner from London. And it's only when I left school and, in the last, decade or so, I became more exposed to people who really just don't like this country, don't love this country. I think national security is an increasingly important issue. And I think the fact that people don't love this country are so inherently like anti-war, think that Britain only has, the only thing that Britain has ever done in this world is negative. I don't agree with that. I think we need to start thinking about a bit more positively about what.
There's the same types of people who think everything about men
Yeah.
is wrong.
Yeah. There's a type of person, I suppose, but I also think I think it's a conversation that has to be had quite delicately, I guess.
For what reason?
Not not to isolate people from the conversation.
Which I don't understand.
I think people feel if they're not being represented properly, they won't want to necessarily join the discourse. Or if they feel like they're not being heard, they won't want to join the discourse. And I think it's important that people feel that they're being listened to. You have some thoughts. What do you think?
What do I think about what specifically?
What do you think about about approaching people in a particular kind of way? Ari, their thoughts on Britain, for example, and, a lack of patriotism. Do you think they should be dealt with harshly, critically, directly, or do you think there's a more kind of...
I don't think they should be dealt with anyway. I think that
Not that deal with them, but deal with the problem, deal with the topic.
Well, I think that if a person lives here and does not like British values and standards, and I mean what made Great Britain, I don't mean modern Britain. I mean,
Yeah.
what our values and standards are. What
Yeah.
the average ethnically English, Scottish, Welsh, Irish person, what all of those things, all of the values that you think about old Britain. When I say old Britain, I mean no, about Britain,
Yeah,
right?
about Britain.
Traditional Britain, not old, traditional. I think if you don't like those and you're here, and you don't like those because they don't align with what your cultures are, which are from somewhere else.
Yeah.
Whether you're like a first generation immigrant, or whether you're, for example, a fourth generation immigrant from another country,
Hmm.
but you're living in a family that following these other like cultural norms from somewhere else in an isolated fashion, but you want the rest of Britain to be like that,
Yeah.
and that goes against
100%.
British values and standards, then you should not be here.
Yeah, I agree. You should be somewhere
That's what
where
I think.
that is in alignment with your belief systems, with your values. Yeah,
Yeah, and I don't think we should bend to those people either. I don't think we should accommodate those people.
I agree.
I think we should. I think we should. I think we should. The first and foremost, above and beyond the concern about hurty feelings or people being isolated or people not feeling welcome here, above and beyond that should go the protection of English, Scottish, Welsh, Irish values, morals, principles. That should come first, the protection of that. And if in protecting those things, people feel isolated or people feel unwelcome here, that's the
Hmm.
fucking way it is.
Hmm.
In exactly the same way as it would be if you went to other countries.
Yeah, so you
You know,
just don't think, fuck them, basically.
I think no, I think no, I think live live according to our values and
Yeah,
standards. If you don't like that, then you either adjust to it or you leave.
yeah. I think the problem is that the reality of the situation is that we have many people in this country who, one, don't love this country, but more than that, wouldn't defend this country. So people who are British themselves completely, being like, Britain's a terrible country.
When you saying British,
I'm talking
are
about British, white, English British
are you
people
talking
who,
like
yes,
ethnically
ethnically Brit,
English, Scottish, Welsh,
ethnically
Irish?
English.
Because anyone can be British
Yeah,
these days with a
I know
passport.
ethnically English
Okay,
people,
yeah,
natives,
that wouldn't fight the country.
who wouldn't fight for the country, who don't defend this country. In fact, oftentimes some of the worst perpetrators, particularly if they come from the upper middle classes, particularly for their upper class, have come from a lot of money, well educated, the way they see themselves as atoning for the sins of their ancestors is by being anti-British. They are the ones in many of the universities who are kind of peddling this idea. So for me, I think it's a more broad problem of like, you have to leave because you're not British. It's like, but there are actually Brits who are championing this idea. So we need to be able to have a conversation. And also, when it comes to minorities, a lot of first generation immigrants, particularly from like my grandparents, for example, are very patriotic to the point of, love the monarchy, for example. Um, my gran was always very adamant, you have to speak really good English. People need to be able to understand you. It's very important. You need to respect this country. You need to respect the law of the land, etc., etc., because there was a appreciation of what this country gave them. My grandmother is Hungarian. I'm half Hungarian. So she grew up in a communist country where they didn't have, freedom of speech in that same way. So a lot of first generation immigrants are actually very appreciative. It's the children, it's our generation, um, where things start to go a little bit wayward because we don't have that immediate experience of oppression that the word that people love to use these days. We don't have that experience, so we just kind of think, oh, I'm a victim in this country and what have you. So yeah, it's oftentimes, there's like, if we're talking about non-ethnic English people, the new wave, there's the new wave and there's the old wave, and they're different, I think. And I think the sources of not being patriotic are completely different. Like some people love British values but don't realize it, and some are completely against it, and that tends to be the new wave. The old wave, 50s up until like, 50s, 60s, 70s, came to Britain because of the opportunity that could be found here. Now, often what you're seeing is are people who think, how can we work the system in our favor and how can we
Most of the case, most of the
infiltrate?
time, most of the
Yeah.
time, and most, I agree with you. And the problem is with that is it's such a disservice to the to immigration which happens, which is actually good for the country,
Yeah.
which is good for us, good,
Yeah.
and that's the minority these days.
Yeah.
No pun intended. But no, I totally agree with you. It's such a difficult discussion though, and not a difficult discussion. Yeah, I think people find it difficult to
Hear the
discuss
truth. Yeah.
because at the root of it, if you want, um, if you want to discuss it objectively and think about, okay, what actually needs to be done here? What would I actually like in the country to get it back to actually people respecting being here? You have to come to the conclusion at some point along that I spoke about earlier, which is you have to accept that people are going to be isolated and people aren't going to feel comfortable here
Yeah.
if you want the country to actually have defined, no, I don't mean defined, yeah, these
No,
values and
defined.
principles and people living
Well,
and respecting each other.
this is another British thing, isn't it? It's like I've been thinking about this a lot recently, this idea of tolerance. Tolerance is very British. We put up with a lot, but actually we shouldn't. I actually think if we had to get rid of one of our values, it'd be tolerance because we put up with too much shit,
Yeah,
really. Most countries don't.
yeah,
A lot of
yeah,
countries like, you don't like it here, tough shit.
yeah,
We are very, how do we make this better for you? Can I be very polite? Get out of your way kind of thing. And I that's it's a problem, there has to be a very clear, defined, you know, understanding of what British values is. And if we don't do that, then we're in trouble.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But again, the same quarter that, that it's you got enough water,
Yes,
yeah,
I'm good. Yeah,
the
yeah.
same quarter that we the same kinds of people, or yeah, the same
Should we
kinds of
define
people.
those people?
Well, for these people, they define the people who think that no feelings should ever be hurt. Everyone should be accommodated. Everybody's equal. There is no difference between anyone, and anyone that and men are all bad, and billionaires are all evil,
Hmm.
and all of the wealth should be shed and could be shed. We've got all of the money and all of the resources in the world to give everyone their food and everyone equal money, and no one ever has to be poor, and that's totally achievable and totally doable. The people who believe that,
Yeah.
which is absolute nonsense. Like you mentioned communism earlier, and I saw something online. It was a social media post, and it was from a lady, a British lady, ex-military lady. She's actually got a Substack,
Oh, I'll check it out.
and she started posting a lot about socialism and communism, and she posted something like, "Oh, there's a reason that they don't
Mm.
want you reading about communism," and I was like, "But you can read about it. It's literally
What
you
do
can go and
you?
read about it, and if you go and read about
Yeah.
communism and the history of it, you wouldn't be posting something like that.
Yeah.
It's like."
Yeah.
But this is the mindset. Like everyone could be equal. Everyone is equal. Everyone should be
It is
treated the
the
same.
mindset. Yeah.
Individuality is wrong.
Capitalism is wrong.
Capitalism is. I've been doing a lot of thought on capitalism recently. It's great. It's also a fucking nightmare.
Yeah, exactly. It's
It's a
both.
thing that allows
But
me
this is
to
the
be able to
thing.
buy anything I want.
Yes.
It's also the thing that tells me everything I can buy is needed.
But it's
You know?
also the thing that drives you, that
Yeah,
provides you with
yeah,
ambition and
yeah,
aspiration.
yeah,
And this is
yeah.
the thing. I think these days people find it really difficult to have dualistic thinking, to like be non-plural in their outlook. Or sorry, to be pluralistic in their outlook. That doesn't exist for them. They have to be like, in order to be a good person, you have to think these things, and bad people think these things, and that's it, and that's that.
Stick yourself in a box, give yourself a label,
Yeah,
and do whatever that label says you should do.
yeah,
With the worst idea ever.
yeah.
The worst idea ever. You know,
And that is why as well, like going back, why should we even bother with minorities and patriotism and having this conversation? Well, I am a minority. um I tick all those boxes: black, working class, bisexual, or queer. As it's kind of, it's all encompassing, like everyone, like if you're gay or queer now. Sex worker, I tick all these boxes. but I don't think how I'm meant to think. And
How are you meant to think? Oh, because you tick all those boxes.
yes,
Those lefty boxes.
yes, I'm meant to be, like have a socialist framework, like maybe I'm very pro Marx, maybe I'm very pro Black Lives Matter, maybe I'm like, and I'm not any of those things, I've been hypercritical of a lot of these things, at least personally in my personal life, to my trusted ones for a long time, so um I just think you should never be able to guess someone's politics by looking at them. That's just boring. And also a big problem because it means that what it means is that we're being told what to think and how to think based on our identity. And that is an extremely limiting way of living.
And I totally agree. And worse than that, you were being told what to think about others and to
Yeah.
make a judgment of others based on what you think they think
Yes.
or the
Exactly.
values they stand for, as
Yes.
opposed to how these people
It's
behave.
reflexive in that way. How you perceive yourself is always going to be how you perceive others. In the sense that the way you see yourself is going to be the way that you see others. So like, because I don't want people to think, oh, because I have, difficult thoughts about myself, that means I have difficult thoughts about other people. Like, I don't believe in that. But it's more about, if I label myself in a particular kind of way, if I think that, I'm trying to think of an example. So yeah, so if I see myself as, let's go with the queer example. I'm queer and therefore I'm oppressed because people don't like gay people, and that's really bad and I'm suffering because of it. Um I'm talking about in this country where it's illegal to be gay, by the way. If I then apply that same logic to somebody else who's straight now, this person is straight and a man, this is the classic one. Therefore, this person isn't oppressed and they're oppressing me. And it creates this dichotomy, of this privileged dichotomy that doesn't actually exist in reality in the way that people think it does.
How does it exist then?
I think it's I think it's person by person. There's it depends on the person, it depends on the individual. Of course, life is going to be harder for some minorities for some reasons, and like historically, especially speaking, like I'm not going to deny that this country hasn't had a racism problem, because I've heard the stories my dad and my granddad have told, and even how hard life was when my mum's parents came here as well, even though they were white. They still obviously had to struggle. But at the same time, I think now life is much better than it ever has been. We have racial equality in ways that we have never had it before. And we're still being told this idea that racism exists where it doesn't
I'm so glad you said.
exist.
I am glad you said that. It's the same. Yeah, I'm glad you said that. In the same way that it's like you can say the same about sexism. Uh, I don't. You can't deny that there are always going to be people who the no, there's not always. There's always going to be people, but it's
There
an
is
ever
always,
dwindling
yeah,
fewer number of people who are like just inherently
I'm not going to hire you because you're a woman.
racist for
Yeah,
like what the fuck, and sexist,
yeah.
right? But that number is dwindling, dwindling, dwindling.
Well, I also think that everyone's racist. And again, like going back to this idea of taboo, right? Um,
Uh,
there's a few things that because ultimately people just want to be good people and they want everyone to think that they're a good person.
yep.
But if we were actually to think, like really be honest with ourselves, most people have like stereotypes in their head about certain races or cultures or religions. Most men probably have had misogynistic thoughts. And um women have probably had quite, well, we can casually practice misandry these days. Like it's not an issue. Um, a lot of men, I'm sure, are a little bit homophobic and with their locker room banter or whatever. At the end of the day, people are problematic. The prob like that's not the issue. The issue is if it's etched into into the social order, if it's etched into law, if when it becomes policy, then it's a problem. But freedom of speech and expression should mean that people should be able to think what they want to think. Of course, we want to try and make a more equitable society. Of course, we want people to be kinder to ourselves. But it's not going to happen if we are not honest with how the human mind works.
Yeah. Discrimination is normal.
Discrimination is normal.
And you have to make
Yeah.
assumptions. And if and on the base level, if you see someone different to you and your people,
Yes.
you make an assumption.
Yes.
Because there's unknowns. This
Yes.
person looks different. It could be the way they're dressed. It could be the skin color.
Yeah.
It could be they got one eye.
Yeah.
It could be the way they walk. It could be what they're doing or not doing.
Yeah.
How they're moving their hands. How they're speaking. Anything. The color of their hair. They look different. You make an assumption. It's definitely unknown. Okay, this person looks different. Therefore, I'm not sure they're going to behave the same way as I'm used to people behaving.
Exactly.
So I can't predict them.
And what we're doing these days is overriding that drive. And like I said, fear is not always a bad thing to feel, especially like when it's a justified feeling. If you're scared of your country being taken away, if you're scared of, something happening to a loved one. This is kind of like the point I was trying to
Mm.
make. We're not listening to that fear instinct, and I think that's a problem.
Mhm. The queer acceptance is an interesting one to me.
Mhm.
And I mean social acceptance of anything other than heterosexuality.
Mhm.
Because that to me is more like a tolerance.
Mhm. Tolerating the queers, you mean?
Tolerating that there are people like this.
Yeah.
So people who aren't going to reproduce.
Mhm.
That's what I'm
Yeah.
talking about. There are people like this. And in the back of your mind, the world's mind, like society's mind, it's if there were too many, if everyone was bisexual, no, bisexual, terrible example. If everyone was
I
homosexual,
love everyone,
if
honey,
mo-
so I'm not involved in this. I can still reproduce and have a girlfriend, and I'll be perfectly happy.
if most people were homosexual, or there was
Yeah.
a pandemic of, I'm saying this is a disease, if there was like a
There's an
epic
epidemic
increase
of queers.
in homosexuality, it'd be
It's-
problematic for the
Yeah,
human
it would,
race.
it would.
You know what I mean? I was thinking about it a couple of weeks back. I think that's interesting because it is a problem. Like they, as in homosexual people, are not great with the human race, but also we accept them.
But also, I guess there's that I've come across a couple of times that you need the gays because we need some people to
We
not
need the gays.
reproduce because there's already an overpopulation
Mm,
crisis. So it
yeah,
is nature's form of contraception.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. One of them, I suppose. One of them. Yeah.
And I think this is I don't think the issue that people have with gays is a reproduction thing. I think the new I mean I think it used to just be look, it used to be grounded in genuine prejudice. I think now the problem is that people think that the gays over sexualize ourselves and they don't like that, which I think is fair, and they don't want the kids to be around it. And
The gays,
I can say that
maybe
because-
that's the case about the transgender community.
I mean, you mean in terms of sexualization, or
Yeah.
so what aspect of it would you say?
What aspect of well, if I was to think about, so when you're talking there and you think about sexualizing things,
Yeah.
I'm thinking people like, the first thing that pops in my head is people like Sam Smith,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And there's people,
I wouldn't
and
call
then
Sam's trans. I would call him confused. Definitely.
okay, but
Yeah.
okay,
yeah.
and then you've also got the examples of
I hear what you're saying. I
overtly queers.
I
going
largely
in-
I largely agree with you. Yeah, I largely
Okay.
agree with you. I do think that they're.
I was struggling to explain this, so I'm glad you stepped
You
in.
were trying to be polite, and I watched you going for a bit. No,
Yeah.
I agree with you.
The part that I think that grates upon most people is
Yeah.
when it is pushed into children's faces.
Absolutely,
What the
and
fuck you
and
doing?
I totally agree with that. I think this kind of like pressure to transition children at a really young age is just crazy to me. I don't think kids should be on
Dreadful.
puberty blockers. I don't think that I think in exceptional circumstances, maybe. Like I know people who were on puberty blockers and transition from an early age. Like people who I would say, okay, this person is definitely trans. For the vast majority of kids, it's like we are not ready for the fallout of how it's being dealt with. We're not ready for it.
No,
Absolutely not.
no, I agree. No, I agree. Crazy.
And it's very, but, and again, going back to this idea of gender as well, and people like, because, like it's the, so MTF, so like, so sorry, FTM, so like female to male, the increase in women transitioning has, or young girls, I should say, has, I think it's like more than tripled. It's something crazy in the last 15 years or something. And again, it's going back to this idea of like women, I think women not being comfortable in our bodies, you know, this idea of when we mature and when we hit puberty, that suddenly men are looking at us in a different way. And there's this, we're not embodied. Many young, like
But is that not that's not that but is that not normal to have those feelings and like insecurities and insurance? Who am I? What is my
yes,
place in the world?
that's normal. But what's not normal now is
The option of switching.
no, it's not necessarily the option either. It's the approval that you receive when you decide to do it.
Yeah.
Everyone's like,
Yeah.
oh, you're so
Fucking mad.
brave.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's
Crazy.
that's the problem.
Crazy.
I know
Crazy.
I know people who've, had full mastectomies and uh, or gender affirming surgery, and it will be horrific in a few
Yeah.
years,
Yeah.
definitely. And
Real,
and
real
women and
bad.
women are the main victims in this case.
Mhm.
Young
Mhm.
girls.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. It is
This
terrible.
is this is like not really um even things that I've spoken publicly before about as well, because for that reason, I have a lot of gay friends, a lot of friends who identify as queer, and if they hear me like saying things like this, they'll probably not speak to me again. I I,
Really?
I bet. Yeah,
Really?
I think some of them, yeah, not all, but some I
Mm.
think will be kind of, what do you mean? Why are you being so transphobic?
Well, you're not. We're
I'm
having an
not, of
objective
course
discussion
not.
about
Of
things.
course not.
Yeah.
Of course
Yeah.
not. I think it's important that people can do whatever they want to, and I do think that there are some people who genuinely need to transition in order to live. But I also think that it has there's that a movement has developed around it that is damaging to children and also to women. And the reason why I first started thinking about it really is because I'm an athlete. And when the whole conversation was
Oh,
coming up around, trans women in sport, um, and I had a lot of friends who, were very pro this idea that trans women should be, and I think that was when I was like, this is nuts.
that is to me that is the was the biggest signal that the I'm going to say wokeism here had
Mm,
just run away with itself, and people have been completely detached from reality.
yeah.
They're completely captured by an ideology, completely put in a box with a label on and doing whatever, saying
Mm,
or supporting whatever they felt they were supposed to do to stay in that team. That was the biggest example
yeah.
because it is fucking undeniable. There is the difference between men and women. There's a reason
There's a
that
reason,
segregate in the first place.
and it
It's
was.
just wild that that even took that, and it's still going on now. Obviously,
Yeah, of course it
it's still
is.
going on now, where you get
Yeah.
males competing in women's sports,
Well, there
and
was,
it's being championed mostly by women,
and this is what my
and
point.
the people it's most
Yeah,
damaging to
are
is
women.
women.
And this is why I was saying earlier that I think that women don't really have a sense of ourselves these days, because we are okay. So like women are more likely to be on the left, right? I think there's a biggest disparity between women and their partners and their male partners in terms of politics than there ever has been. Like it's a lot of people, it's a deal breaker. For example, I vote left, I vote Labour, you vote Tory. That's an absolute no. And I think that's really being um I think that's what's happening now, is that women do tend to be the champions of policy and ideology that is actually more harmful to us as women than we realize. And a lot of men are like, what is going on here? And some men are taking advantage of the situation. So that's why I kind of like some men will speak to me and they'll use all like the right terms. They'll say things like inclusive and they'll say things like, you know, affirming. And I'm like, I don't trust you. You know the lingo. I don't buy
Trigger
your game.
words.
Yeah,
Trigger
yeah.
words. Yeah, trigger words.
I'm like, you're not the sensitive guy that you're trying to make out. You're just actually
Yeah,
trying to capitalize on the
yeah,
situation.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, and one of the biggest things, one of the biggest problems that this has created, this what we're talking about there, this movement, s- this mindset that has, you know, impacted and captured a lot of women, which we're talking about here, which is damaging. One of the biggest problems there is that it it paints women as being victims by and large. And what that does is it strips away women's confidence in themselves,
Yeah.
their self assurance, and how fucking valuable they are.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It just
Yeah.
like strips it all away, and everything else is someone else's fault, and takes away that self agency, that personal agency, your confidence self to go out and achieve and do whatever it is you want to do, whether that's become a CEO
Or be a mother.
or be a mother. Exactly.
Yeah.
Equally as valuable.
Yeah.
Equally as valuable. It's such a shame. Such a shame.
Yeah. And I think
And it confuses so many people,
it
women.
does. It does. And it's so interesting that we're seeing, the rise of the manosphere and the rise of very hyper left leaning women who I think in both cases it's a lack of self-love in a lot of cases. I think we have a yeah, like a self-love issue that is being exacerbated by intentionally being exacerbated by divisive a divisive socio-political landscape
Yeah.
because any conflict makes money, doesn't it? Even if it is just the battle of the sexes.
Yeah. Yeah. Division sells, division makes money. Yeah. Right. We've got shed loads of questions. We need,
Okay.
we need to start on.
Yes.
All right. Question one from Coke. Do sex workers and their work deserve respect? You can one word that if you
100%.
want. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Of
Okay.
course I'm going to say yes. Of course. We're humans at the end of the day. Every human deserves respect. We
Mhm.
haven't done any, we're not hurting anyone. I mean, I
Mhm.
guess you could argue that's up for debate depending on how deep you want to go. But yeah, of course, sex workers
Yeah.
deserve respect. Hard
There's a.
job as well.
Hmm?
It's a hard job.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a follow up to that. And the
Mhm.
question is for me, and it says, Hugh, do you respect them and their work? Would you, Hugh, be disgusted and outraged if my kids were
Mm.
told sex work was a respectable career
Career.
path in school? Would I be disgusted,
You answer, but then I would
outraged?
like to also follow up.
Okay, I
Something.
wouldn't be disgusted or outraged. Maybe I'd be outraged. I wouldn't be happy with it. I wouldn't. So, as a respectable career path in school, no, I wouldn't be happy if they were told sex work is a respectable career path in school. No, I wouldn't be happy with that. No,
No,
no.
I wouldn't be happy either.
Okay,
I
good.
don't think it should be taught in the schools. No, exactly. I don't think but it's not. It's also anything that, like, ultimately, I see sex workers belonging as to kind of the underbelly of society, let's say. And I think underbelly is necessary for, like, I'm sure you'd have the same response maybe if your son came back or your daughter came back and was like, I'm a drug dealer, for example. They don't teach that kind, you're not gonna teach those kind of things in school, right? But I do think that in society there are certain jobs that are kind of that do exist in this very like gray area. And in many ways, a healthy society needs a kind of underbelly. It needs a kind of gray world.
I don't
where there
think
are
those two things are comparable in any
they're
way,
not
shape, or
they're not
form.
comparable. They're not comparable. But what I'm saying is they both I don't mean in terms of them being like of moral equivalence. What I'm saying is that there's an underbelly that exists in society, and I think it's important that society has those things. And there are many moral questions that those places kind of bring up, and I think it's important to discuss them.
Okay. Okay. Uh, question two. Um, has your writing, your Substack
Hmm.
writing, your articles, has that changed the way you think about the world?
Yeah, for sure. I think my Substack articles are like how I process things, and that's how um and process my changing perception of the world, let's say.
Yeah, I think it's really valuable. Writing and putting time aside to have real
Hmm.
conversations with people. I would be a totally different person if I'd never started a podcast.
Yeah.
Absolutely guaranteed.
Hmm.
Like it's changed me for the better in subtle ways,
Yeah.
and probably ways that are only noticeable to me. The way my internal dialogue, the way I think I understand the world, the way I think about what I feel, why I feel it, what I've seen, why I think certain things about what I've seen. In the same way that the writing must do, because you sort of
It's a process, isn't
yeah,
it? Yeah, it's
exactly,
processing.
processing.
It's processing things.
Most people don't do that these days in any way, shape, or
Yeah.
form. Any way, shape, or form. How do the bonds you make? And did I ask you this question?
I don't think so. I don't remember you.
How do the bonds you make in the martial arts world compare to
Mhm.
the bonds you make outside of it?
I really, really treasure the bonds that I have in the martial arts world, and I think there's we've touched on some of like some political things. I find martial arts is, for me anyway, is like quite an apolitical space in the best way, because people don't care what your background is from. They don't care what you believe. They don't care about any of those things. It's just like bonded through blood, sweat, and tears kind of thing.
Do you get? Here's the question. Here's the question. Do you get in jujitsu?
Mm,
So do you train gi and no gi?
yeah.
So has there been the start of people putting political or ideological patches and shit on the gis? Is anyone knocking about with a Palestine flag, a Ukraine flag, or a trans flag?
I think I've
Have you seen?
no, no, actually, no, no, no. I'm just
Oh,
trying to
okay,
think.
that's good.
I think there has been like cases of kind of people coming in and you know maybe like a Palestine shirt,
Yeah,
but like nothing overt.
yeah,
Let's
okay.
say
Oh,
I don't
yeah,
think there's. I
yeah.
don't think it's tolerated that much in gyms. Not the ones I've trained in, anyway.
We say that, but maybe it's just 'cause it hasn't happened yet. No one's going to call someone out for a
Yeah.
patch, are they? You know?
No. Yeah. Well. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I bet there's some gym. Maybe there's some
I'm
gyms that
sure
are like
there's a gym.
rampant with
I'm
it.
sure. I'm
Rampant.
sure. I'm sure there is.
Mm,
I'm sure there is.
mm. Anyway, okay. Another question for you here. What is the biggest sacrifice you've made in life?
My sanity. Wasn't it? um, biggest sacrifice I've made. Probably like just not doing things that I wanted to do. I should have probably done them. Um, I I sacrificed my self-perception, I think, when I was younger. I sacrificed myself a lot for other people and what I thought people wanted to see in me. And I don't do that anymore. But yeah, that's probably my biggest sacrifice.
Okay. How do you feel about other forms of fighting, like wars, such as in Iran now or Afghanistan before?
I'm definitely not one of those I'm a pacifist types. I think a lot of people kind of get out of this uh if you try and talk about a war, they're like, I'm a pacifist, or I don't believe in war, or that's a genocide, or whatever.
They probably haven't thought it through to be able to give an honest answer. That's the problem. Most people don't know what they think.
I think the war in I think the war in Iran, I was I am pro Trump going in because he promised the Iranians that he was going to do it, and I think there is a geopolitical um I think that regime needs to be toppled in order for there to be um, wider change in the Middle East. I do think, however, that we are going to see probably a lot more terrorist attacks in the West. I think that why are you what is this
I
face
just,
for?
I'm just thinking what I think. Go on.
Um, and I think there's definitely going to be a fallout in the West because of it. But I think there needs to be a regime change. I do. It's interesting, kind of like watching it play out day by day, because there's clearly a lot of um, relationships between countries with, like Russia and China, for example, that are shifting because of it. Russia's relationship with other EU countries. So yeah, I think I'm for this war. I just don't know what the cost is going to be, like in any kind of,
Why do you think there needs to be regime change?
because they're a dictatorship, and I don't believe in extremist Islam. I think it's dangerous, and I think that people need to understand the gravity of that. The Islamic Republic is extremely dangerous. They fund Hezbollah, they fund Hamas, they fund the Houthis, and they're sowing discord in the entire region.
Um,
And what do you think? I'll be interested to hear what you think.
all right, let's hypothesize
Hmm.
and say, all right, life could maybe be better there for people. Um,
Do you think this
I
is
don't think that they are much more of a dictatorship than what a lot of Western governments are now.
say that again?
Than a lot of Western
You
governments are
don't
now.
think
They're much more of a dictatorship than
yes,
what a lot of more Western governments are now.
there is a dictatorship.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
are.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'm saying they're not much more than what a lot of Western governments are now.
In what sense? But that's which Western government would kill 50,000 of its own people?
Which what? Sorry.
Which Western government would kill
Oh,
50,000?
that's the case. That doesn't mean there can't be a dictatorship in place. You know, it's about how decisions are made. So the dictatorship is about how decisions are made at the top and the involvement of the people in those decisions. You know, and we, the UK and America, are much closer to how a dictatorship runs than how a democracy runs. That's what I think. The other thing I think is that why is it why is it America's job to go in there and bring about the end to this regime, and why is the timing of it now?
You asking me, or are you going to
Yeah,
give me an
nothing
answer?
new has happened in Iran in the last 20, 30 years. Nothing new has happened. The
They've had protests. They've
the
they've they've had like obviously women like freedom and students going out into the streets and
Yeah,
protesting.
the protests initially were relatively small, and then basically they got
Yeah,
amplified in the big way over in the West, and then those smaller protests got encouraged and supported
yeah. Do you
by the
think
West, which made it bigger. Which then you got brought about the repercussions that happen when you get a
I
dictatorship
would
going. This shouldn't be happening.
strongly disagree that we have anything like what's happening there, and for several reasons. I think we are not a secular country. We don't have a religious extremist movement dictating us. We have still have freedom of speech. Yes, it's good. Well, yes, there are
Mm.
issues. Yes, it's getting worse. We are tending towards towards, I would say, a fascist way um of a fascist framework. I wouldn't deny that, but I don't think we're at any point anywhere near what is happening in Iran. I think the danger is that if we don't identify the similarities, if we don't identify how what happened in Iran could happen here if we're not careful. But I don't think we're at the same point yet.
I agree with that. I agree. Um, I don't agree that we should be in Iran. I don't agree that we should be supporting the UK. I don't agree that the USA should be there. I don't agree that it's the USA's concern. I don't agree that it's our concern. I don't agree that Iran
Mhm.
poses a threat to us in any way, shape, or form. I do agree
You
that
don't think Iran?
I do agree that there are people there who are oppressed in some way.
Uh-huh.
I think most people who live there are totally fine living there in Iran. Totally fine going
Is
along with
that
the way
what
it
the
is.
Iranians,
This is
say?
what I think. I think most of the Iranians think that. If most of the Iranians didn't think that, most of the Iranians would topple the government. If it was that
Most
bad, most would topple the government.
But
Is
that's
what they
what
would do.
happens in any dictatorship, though, isn't it? Like it lasts for longer than it should. Most people are suffering. Many people are suffering, but you all you need is a small group of people to support and to be sycophants and to desire their own power, and that's how you have Khmer Rouge. That's how you have um, Soviet Russia. That's how you have all of these these dictatorships happening around the world. That's how you have Assad. That's how it happens, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't think we should. Still don't think we should be there. It's been America doing well. I was going to say America doing world police, but it's not world police that they're doing. They're fighting someone else's war. Was what they're doing.
So whose war do you think it is? Israel's war.
Yeah,
Mhm. But then what happens if, just
and
hypothetically,
go on. Sorry.
what happens if Israel is destroyed and we now don't have any of the kind of the technology, any of the scientists, any of the we don't have any of those people, and we now don't have any a democracy in the way that Israel exists in the Middle East.
What are you referring to in the scientists and the technology?
Well, we have, there's a lot of there's a relationship built between America and Israel. I wouldn't say it's necessarily just because America loves Israel. I feel like there must be a some benefits that Israel also provides to the USA.
Funded by the USA. So there's technological developments there. Oh, absolutely. I know
Hmm.
obviously a lot weapon and war oriented
Hmm.
and surveillance oriented,
Yeah,
but that's funded by America. Could be just as achievable in America as it
but
is in the Middle East. The Middle East situation that's the Middle East
mm,
problem. There's problems elsewhere in the world. We don't decide to step into those. The reason this situation is happening in Iran is because it's a relationship between Israel and the USA,
mhm,
and we are being dragged into that.
mhm, mhm. I wouldn't say we're being dragged. I don't think Starmer can be dragged.
Well, yeah, okay, this is the surprising turn of events that Starmer is standing up
You
to the big
surprised? I'm
man.
not surprised.
I am surprised. I am surprised, but
I
probably
kind
the
of
only
think
reason he's
this
doing it
is.
is because world consensus, Western world consensus, the tide is turning against the opinions on
Mm,
America at the minute. The world's changing very quickly.
yeah.
This had been 5 years ago. We were being bells and whistles in there.
Mhm, mhm.
So it's very interesting times. I think.
So
I
when
think
is a war justified?
when is a war justified?
Should the UK, for example, World War II, the UK joined because you can give me a history lesson here. We joined because we felt we were under immediate threat. Obviously, Germany's a close neighbor. They were going to invading Britain. You know, they're invading Europe. At what point at what point does a threat become a threat to you? Is the question. You meaning a country.
Well, World War II isn't the greatest example of that because Germany wasn't a threat to us initially. At the point that we declared war, Germany wasn't declaring them a threat to us. In fact, Hitler saw the UK as a potential ally. positively looked upon it, and respected what the UK was, or Great Britain was. So it's not a great example of it. To answer your question, when is a war justified? If there is a direct threat, a direct threat to your sovereignty,
Mm-hmm.
is what I'd say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, your direct threat to your sovereignty. In my opinion on what our foreign policy should be, and our military policy should be, has changed a lot over the last 6-7 years. And I think it should be mainly a defensive posture, not interventionist overseas policy that we've done, and I've been part of.
Yeah.
You know,
So the fact that that we're now uncovering all these Iranian sleeper cells in the UK, the fact
that's
that
convenient bullshit.
you think it's bullshit.
Yeah,
You don't think there's any?
I think it's over dramatized. So if like most of the rhetoric around, I think most of the rhetoric we've seen around Iran being a threat is just regurgitated nonsense or absolute bullshit. So it was predetermined that they were going to go into Iran. They have to invent reasons.
How many years in advance do you think? Because I agree. I do think there was probably. I mean, clearly this has been the plan the whole time. I agree with that.
Yeah, yeah.
I agree.
How many years in advance? I don't know. I don't know.
I would say probably since October 7th, the plan was to invade Iran.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe. What was I going to say before? What was I going to say before that? I can't remember. I lost my train of thought. But I don't think we should be there. I don't see Iran as a threat to us. I don't think we should be any part
You
of it.
know what's going to tell us? Time.
Time will tell us. Yeah, time will tell us. I don't think it's going to work out well for the USA at all. I don't think it's going to work out well for Israel either at all. And this is, I think we're seeing an empire in decline in the
You
USA.
mean the US?
US, and I think we're seeing a change in global opinion towards Israel.
I don't think.
Which I think is their own doing.
I mean, if we're gonna pro it, I've been to Israel several times. I've got Israeli friends. I'm a quarter Jewish. I'm Jewish.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. My granddad was Hungarian Jewish,
Mhm.
and obviously it's been a big thing I've been thinking about recently. And yeah, I mean, I think I'm not an expert. I don't. I try and educate myself as much on the subject as I can. Yes, I do agree. We possibly watching an empire in decline. I think Israel is. I do think there's an unfair perception of it as a specifically evil country. I don't think that's a fair view of it, because I think there's a lot of countries in the world that are kind of, embroiled in difficult conflicts. And for me, again, it's this thing that has become extremely divisive and disallows people from having, honest and open conversation. It's the conversation these days that gets people's hearts racing. And I find that interesting.
What, the conversation about Israel Palestine?
Yeah. And the whole region in general, like Iranians, for example, hearing that we shouldn't go in is, will if you're identified with a place, of course it's going to be particularly kind of a difficult conversation, I guess. And I think that this is the thing that I'm really kind of interested in at the moment as well, is like, how do we have these extremely difficult conversations without and the goal is solution. The goal is to understand what we need to do better in order to have, healthy society.
Why haven't we chosen to deal with North Korea?
That's an interesting question. Why do
The
you
most
think?
obvious, long-standing dictatorship was
Mm,
the worst one in existence right now in
mm.
terms of how people are oppressed and the way they have to exist. Highly visible. And why haven't we gone there? If it's to deal with
Mm,
people being oppressed and dictatorships, then
mm.
and you could say, oh, because proximity to China, relationship with China. Iran's got a very strong relationship with China and Russia. You know,
Yeah.
I'm going. The point I'm making is about the
If
motivations for why we've gone there.
Yeah, I think maybe it could potentially be because Iran until I actually think it might be like almost a psychological thing in some ways. Iran l- falling under a dictatorship. I think it's the circumstances potentially around how it happened. Oil, obviously. Look, I'm not under any pretense that there is clearly something that is going to benefit America, and it's probably oil, and it's the relationships in that region. Um, I can never say it right. It's the Strait of Hormuz.
Yeah,
Yeah.
almost.
I
Yeah,
I think that there's clearly something that the USA wants, and I think the reason why countries go to war, it's like in Venezuela, right? Um, Trump, um, that was there's clearly something that America's going to benefit from that situation. I don't think that's necessarily an issue. A country acting in its own interests is not a problem, even if the thing that we're hearing in the media is we're going to save the Iranians. Most people are going to be happy that that is happening for that reason. But of course, a country ultimately needs to act in its own interest. I totally agree with that. Um,
the problem I've got is, so
mhm,
I agree with you, and nations should act in their own interests. I totally agree. Where Iran's concerned is I don't think the USA are acting in their own interests. I think predominantly they're acting because they have to, because of the influence of Israel. That's what I think predominantly.
mhm.
There are benefits from it as well.
So if America is funding Israel,
Uh,
you're
yeah.
saying that most of this technology is being so why would they need to go into war with Israel if they're being
Why
if
would who need to go to war with Israel?
why would America need to go to war for Israel if Israel is being completely funded by America? If Israel can only gain from America, um,
Israel can gain from Iran being toppled.
I understand that. But what my question is, why would America be getting dragged into a war with Israel if they were if they were funding entirely Israel? That would mean
Israel's not powerful enough to go up against Iran
I
itself.
hear it. So then
Yeah,
why would the USA bother? That's my question.
because of Israeli influence in America.
Okay, but Israeli influence in America, but then the surely the government would be like, yeah, but we don't actually need you. You need us.
I think it's on an individual level.
Do you think it's purely individual?
I think the influence is on an individual level across many
So then
people.
what about like funding from Qatar, for example? Why is it that America isn't more likely to do what Qatar wants to facilitate Qatar as a nation that is
Qatar doesn't have the
probably
same level of influence in America that Israel
but
does.
they do. Like they have, the many universities are funded by Qatar. Many of the institutions are funded. Many institutions are funded by Qatar. Qatar has Trump has a plane, a new private jet from Qatar.
Hmm.
He couldn't say no to. So many countries have power and influence in America. That's the reason why it's.
I think Israel overarchingly has the
Do you
most,
think?
and they have a
I
stranglehold on
disagree with
America.
that, but I can see how. Yeah.
Um, yeah, I going back to the when I said we are closer to a
Hmm.
dictatorship than we are to a democracy.
Yeah.
We sort of touched. Sort of touched on a little bit there in that the reasons they say
Hmm.
that we're in Iran or attacking Iran, right, are not the real reasons they're doing it. The reasons they say it are to try and convince you it's in your best interest as a British person. It's in your best interests. In the same way that the reasons they said that we invaded Iraq in 2003, I was in on that
Hmm.
invasion. The reasons we said we invaded Iraq in 2003 were not the reasons it was done. It was completely missold. What happens is, this is why I say we're closer to dictatorship than we are to democracy, is that the decision process is
Yeah.
totally inverted. The president or the prime minister,
Hmm.
they decide what is to be done, or the people influence them to decide what is to be done. Their job is to bring about a situation where they can do what needs to be done. And most of the time that involves misleading the public. That happened in Iraq in 2003. It's happening in Iran
Yeah.
now. It happened in Libya. It happened in Afghanistan,
Hmm.
you know? So a democracy is the people make a choice, the people inform the decisions. What we've got is the decision is made, then the the
By.
influence operation,
Hmm.
or not, it's an ongoing campaign, then the influence, the way people are influenced to think that it's a good idea.
Hmm.
It shouldn't be like that. This is what we're going to do, and I'm going to
Yeah,
convince you it's the right
but
idea
I
by
know a
lying to you.
lot of people who are not for this war, and who have the same arguments against it. Um, I know a lot of people. I know a lot of people who would agree with you. Probably most people. I know I would either agree with you, or just very bluntly say Israel is an evil country. They're committing genocide. Plus, we have nothing to do with them. I know a lot of people with that point of view. I do think I'm not as well informed with you about like Iraq and Afghanistan especially. I feel like this is different. I couldn't entirely say why. It's something I'm trying to like read about at the moment. Um, I don't know how influenced people are being. I'd say I'm more influenced by my Iranian friends, and I'm also thinking about how the fact that, like I was saying earlier, how similar our society is right now to what happened, how Iran was in the 70s before it fell under a dictatorship. You know, this kind of, what do they call it? This allegiance between socialism and Islam, for example, um, and the similarities there, and like how that was the relationship that allowed the dictatorship to come in, and then all the communists were killed. I think a very similar thing could happen here. Um, Yeah, and I can't. This is my emotional side. Like, when I see my Iranian friends who are, they've lost family and friends, and I'm not saying that that alone is a reason why a country should risk its own soldiers' lives, risk its own, risk its own people. But I do think that there is something about there's a similarity here that I think, and I do think a certain kind of extremism could really have a huge impact here.
Yeah. On these from the Islamic side of things, you mean?
Yeah, Islamic extremism. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a problem. It's a problem. But I think we're fanning the flames of that with Iran. Iran doesn't eliminate that. Let's say you topple Iran, it doesn't eliminate that. It creates more enemies. There's another aspect to this, and that it's almost something that's sort of incalculable. You look at Iraq,
Hmm.
and you go, okay, what was that like before the
Hmm.
invasion?
Hmm.
Hmm. Right, there were some people who were oppressed, real badly mistreated. The Shiites, over there were marginalized and attacked. Um, uh, and then we invaded, and it's worse because we invaded, we toppled the dictator,
Hmm.
and we created 23 years of instability. 23 years now this year. 23 years of instability. That place is worse off than what it was when Saddam was there.
But they didn't have a democracy in the same way that Iran did before the dictatorship. Iran had a democracy. Yet again, yes, things weren't equal, but they had, thriving education. Women were free, you know, and I think that's the difference. They were not.
That's an Islam problem. That's not an exclusively Iran problem. That's an Islam problem.
I agree with you. I agree with you, and I think this is the difference. If you have a country that is secular, Islamic, culturally Islamic as well, like women are deemed as inferior. There's okay, yes, of course people are going to be oppressed. That's and that's how it's just, and Afghanistan. is just so fucking sad. Like how it is and again, Afghanistan is another interesting example because a lot of these countries historically were not Muslim. And I think this is the conversation really where what it is like people can't hear about the caliphate. People don't want to speak about, like Islamic colonialism, for example, which is the reason why we're having this conversation in the first, this specific part of the conversation. Um, so I'm more concerned that we're not having that conversation in general. And I think if we were more able to openly have that conversation, especially our politicians were able to have that conversation, we'd have the society would have a better grasp of what's happening in Iran and the Middle East more generally.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, true. Let's go back to the questions.
Oh, but I did actually think though, going back to, uh, if your child comes back and says that, would you be more upset if your child came home and said, I want to be a sex worker or I'd want to be a soldier on the front lines?
uh, I wouldn't be upset with either. My youngest wants to join up.
Mm,
Um, I've not got an issue with that.
hmm
But that I think that is because of an acceptance that they may be involved in wars that I don't agree we should be fighting,
hmm
which is the reality. But ultimately, I want my kids to do what inspires them and makes them happy and what they
hmm
think they're best able to do.
Yeah,
You know, I just hope that's not military or sex worker.
very fair. About the same then.
Yeah. Right. Let's. It is 6 p.m.
Isn't it?
Yeah, it's fucking
Stop
flown.
it.
I'm telling you, it's 6 p.m. It's flown by.
We've been chatting
I
away.
know, yeah.
Gotta go.
I know, yeah. Sorry.
It was 5.
Are you?
No, that's right.
You're right. Okay,
Yeah.
okay, cool. Right, where are we? Blah blah blah. Look at the questions. Blah blah blah. Okay. That was the how do you feel about other forms of fighting, like wars question, which we did for about half an hour, 45 minutes. All right. There's questions in the chat. Let me just pull those up in the YouTube chat. So, oh god, there's loads. Let me make it bigger. If it, in no particular order, these have been trickling in through we started the podcast since we started the podcast. Okay, from Coke, if a weak woman hits a man, does he have the right to give her a hard hit
God.
back?
No, but like
If
God, I hate this question because it annoys me when women hit men. Pisses me off. But then I'm also like, if I slap a 6'5", 100-kilo guy, I'd kind of like, I think I'd be like, babes, what did you expect? I also wouldn't condone him hitting her hard back because you're probably going to kill her. Do you know what I mean?
it's all about context, isn't it?
It's about context.
It's about context, isn't it? It's like,
About
okay,
context.
yeah,
But
I know it's a difficult one.
I
I think-
women hitting men, I'm like, oh.
I think there's only a couple of circumstances where I'll be like, okay, that was justified.
Yeah.
And that is a woman constantly hitting a guy will not stop, even if that's not that hard, and they're hitting them. Stop,
Yeah.
get away from you. There's videos of this all the
I
time.
know.
You stop, and you see guys being really
And then she gets slapped and you're like,
patient,
"Babes,
and you go,
but why did
fucking
you
hell,
do
man,
it?"
what is this girl doing? Then use some strength and minimal violence to
Yes.
restrain or stop that.
Yes.
And then the other side is if you get someone like you, and if you come and hit
Well,
me,
that would be unfair. I'm getting it, aren't I? I'm getting it. I'm getting it. And I would be like, fair.
I'd be in survival
Yeah.
mode.
Yeah.
My God. Okay. All right. Next question. Are you more or less inclined to get in a street fight if someone is argumentative with you due to your training?
Because of my training, I don't understand that.
So because of who you are, your training, your capabilities, are you more or less likely to get involved in a physical altercation?
No, the only way I'd get involved in a physical altercation is someone attacked me or someone I loved. So that's
Okay.
it. Or someone who was around me who I feel like was being,
Okay.
unfairly treated.
What kind of man do you find attractive? This is from Coke. That's not from me.
I like I like men. I do like strong men. I like men who are fit, but I like men who are comfortable with their sexuality, because I like a strong man who I can kind of is happy being submissive once in a while, but is a man the rest of the time. If that makes sense.
Okay. That's a fine balance.
Yeah, it is a fine balance.
Uh, good. Sorry. Well, if a wife, okay. If a wife of a married client
Hmm.
contacted you to know if her husband had cheated on her with you,
Ooh, I like that question
what would
actually.
you say?
I'd say client confidentiality.
That's what you'd say.
Yeah.
And that gives the answer.
Well, not necessarily.
So even if the man had not, if he didn't know the guy,
Okay.
see my
Well,
point?
I'm gonna say client confidentiality, and I would say it. That's what I'm gonna leave it at, because
Okay.
I think that's fair, isn't it,
Yeah.
on everyone,
Yeah.
including myself.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Uh, I think that is it. What's the generally self?
Have you got any unsavory ones?
No, no. Okay, here we go. Last question. What does Monique feel is the most effective and practical self-defense form? Do you agree? Does she agree that many martial art styles are sport forms and not completely practical for real world scenarios?
Yes, I agree. The most the most effective, especially as a woman, is Brazilian jiu-jitsu, but not the sports jiu-jitsu, like traditional Gracie jiu-jitsu, where you learn how to deal with assault situations. I think is the best.
Every woman should be taught jiu-jitsu. Should
Every
do a
woman
few
should be
classes
taught.
at least. I
Yeah,
think. Yeah.
definitely. And then in terms of like other styles, I think whatever works for you, um, whatever works for you. And because I've been training for a long time, I know that there's things I would do like eye pokes, groin kicks, some grappling. I think it's just about and running away, getting out there if you can. Also visualizing. I visualize assault situations quite a lot, just to kind of think how I'd get out of something and what I would do.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Do you do that for fights as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lots of
I think
visualizing.
visualization is such an underrated
It's so important.
practice.
Yeah, it's so important with everything. Even just like if you want to have a difficult conversation with someone, they say visualize having the conversation and like the various outcomes. Visualize how you want it to be, and also visualize what happens if it doesn't turn out the way you want, and how you will behave in that scenario.
Yeah. 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 Monique, it has been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me. I've had a great
I,
chat. Didn't
I,
even realize it's
yeah.
been
I knew
so
we'd have a good
long.
chat, and I didn't expect it to go on this long, and I'm not complaining. I'm happy. There is, we covered good topics
We
there.
did. We
I
did.
think with people who, I think, like you said earlier, people find these things, a lot of these things difficult to discuss or even
Hmm.
think about.
Yeah.
And I think in those cases, conversations like this, they can outsource their thinking.
Yeah.
And that's not me saying, "Oh, think what you were saying,"
Yeah.
or think they should think what we're saying.
Yeah.
It means listen to what we're talking and help that to inform what you think.
Exactly.
I know, but also on that, don't take our word for anything. Just we could be
Think
talking shit on a
about
lot of stuff.
yeah, I know we've said nothing of importance at all.
Yeah. But right. So, how can people follow you? And can you give the Substack link,
Yes.
please?
So my Instagram is ladyblackvenus.x, and you can find all of my links in my bio, including my Substack and all my other content. And if you want to follow Lost Patriots, which is just Lost Patriots on Instagram, that is going to be where you're going to find all of the cultural and political conversations.
When's the release date?
Release date is a tentative April 14th.
Perfect. Good timing.
Yeah.
This should be out about a week or two before that.
Amazing.
Thanks for your time.
Thank
Good
you.
luck with everything, the fights,
Thank you.
everything. And you are welcome back in here anytime. Come back
Great.
in, we'll have another chat.
Great. Looking forward to it.